Good morning, everybody, and welcome to InsureTalk12. My name is Nontutsugomhlung, and I will be your session host today. Now, today marks the fourth InsureTalk in 2021, which is truly a testament to how this year is just flying by. We do hope, however, that you have been enjoying the engaging content we have been bringing your way. Today is not going to be any different, of course. This is our agenda for today, aptly themed specialization in a switched on world. As you can see, quality of content and speakers coming right your way today. All right, so let us sorry, apologies for that. So quality content and speakers are coming right your way today. Wherever you are today, do sit back and enjoy the session. I know some of you have gone back to work while others continue to work from home. Wherever you are, make yourself comfortable and enjoy the session. All right, let me take this opportunity now to thank our sponsors today. Old Mutual, of course, is our headline sponsor. A huge thank you to you, Old Mutual. The session truly would not be possible without you. Our event partners also include CIB Bowman's and the IISA, who have also assisted with the accreditation of this session. You should be looking forward to those 2.5 CPD hours as we all dash to that CPD deadline. So huge thank you to you, IISA, and of course, Cover Magazine coming in as our media partner today. A huge thank you to you, Cover Magazine. And then last but certainly not least, a thank you to all of our attendees for your continued support of Insure Talk. Just last month, we celebrated our first birthday, a truly incredible milestone for us. So huge thank you. We do look forward to the journey ahead and to bringing you a more compelling and informative Insure Talks. All right, let's head on over to the business of the day now. And our first speaker is Antonia Oakes. Antonia is the Executive Head of Customer Experience and Responsible Business at Old Mutual Insure. She's going to be talking to us today about service in the new normal and what this means to the customer. How has the customer evolved? The customer of today, that is. How has this customer evolved over the last couple of months? So without any further ado, it is over to you, Antonia Oakes.
Thank you, Noni. And a welcome to everyone. And I'm absolutely excited to be one of the presenters and panelists in this session today. I'm hoping that you can see my screen. And I will be, talking to service, customer experience in the now. What is that? So maybe just a bit of background. And as I said, I am excited. So a hearty and warm welcome and happy Thursday to all of you. So a bit about me. Won't spend that much time on me, but just a bit about me. I have, my insurance background started as early as 2000. But worked my way through. But my passion has always been customer experience and service within the insurance industry. A background in Masters in Business Leadership, Business Acumen. But as I said, inherently, it's the customer experience practitioner and professionalism that I take to the fore. Yes, I head up customer experience and responsible business within Old Mutual Insure. It is a very daunting but exciting task because service and customer experience is really about people and getting everyone fit and DNA'd into what your brand actually needs to do when it comes to service and customer experience. So this was just a hello from me to you. Nice warm hands for a Thursday morning. And I'm hoping that what I share with you today is going to be quite interesting. Some of it you would know already, but it's really about connecting the dots. And yes, they say customer experience and service is not rocket science. And how does it add value to the bottom line? I will be sharing some of that with you today. Is it important in our world? And my answer to that is always, as long as we deal with people and we deal with human beings, there will be things like, please do it now and do it fast. There will be things like emotions and feelings. And I'm hoping to share that with you today, hoping that it resonates, hoping that it adds value in your strategies. makes you understand that, yes, as much as it doesn't seem to be rocket science, but I always find people asking me how. What is easily attainable? The what is easily drawn in pictures and in strategies, but the how is more important. So let's move on. And yes, the world has gone bonkers indeed. 2020 was a year where business grappled with major disruptions as we have been forced to move into areas that see us in a digital, in a virtual, as we find ourselves now. The crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, definitely took us by shock, and some 5-year plans became redundant in no time. Human behavior, consumer behavior definitely changed, which inevitably was driven by uncertainty and the fear of the unknown. And this profession is nothing more than just putting yourself in the customer and in the human's shoes. We are all customers, we are all humans. So companies quickly caught on to the changing customer needs, and they design new products which address these needs. And I'm sure we are all testament to some of those products. If you're not driving your vehicles, you're working from home, why do you have to pay more? Digital online interactions and engagements became a thing and is still a thing. Online shopping, virtual parties, and socials. Change in office dress code is about top upper and relaxed downer looks, and expectations have been heightened to immediacy and service in the now. So if you are going to enable me and give me a platform that speaks to digital, please make it now, or your response needs to be now. It definitely was an eye-opening year for each and every one, companies alike. Despite the hurdles that some companies face, though, the companies with the strong and adaptive customer experience foundation emerged somewhat unscathed. They did stand by their customers and continued to provide a stellar experience. If the status quo that we see right now is to be believed and lived in as we see it, I guess 2021 would see more emerging customer trends come through, and I will be sharing those with you. I'm going to be sharing a video now, which speaks to this whole digitized world, but really showing you what high street shopping could be, or what high street shopping could be like when in terms of online shopping. Please sit back and enjoy it, and I'd like you to just share your thoughts on this video, whether it's funny, whether you resonate, whether you've been through this, but I'd like the chats to be engaged. Thank you.
Hi there. Can I have a couple of bread rolls, please?
Yes, no problem. Have you shopped with us before?
No, not recently, but I think I came here when I was little.
We'll just have to register you then. What's your date of birth?
23rd of June, 1993.
Lovely. And can you confirm your full name for me, please?
Lucy Manon Daniels.
Lovely. Mother's maiden name?
Jones.
First car?
Oh, I don't have a car.
Favourite teacher then?
Mrs. Day.
Sorry, not enough characters.
Mr. Williams then.
Lovely. Brown or white?
I think he was...
The rolls, brown or white?
Oh, sorry, white, please.
Could you just look through this for me, please?
Okay.
Just tell me which one's got cars in.
Middle right, bottom right.
Lovely. You're not a robot.
That's a relief.
And when would you like these rolls?
I'd like them now, please.
Will you be here today between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m.?
Well, I'm here at 11:34, actually, ready for my rolls.
Did you know you could track your rolls?
No, but I'll just have them now, thanks.
You just need to agree to our terms and conditions.
I agree to the terms and conditions.
And just to confirm your purchase, you'll get a number on your phone.
Hasn't come through yet. Oh, here we are. 554762.
No, that number's wrong. Sorry, goodbye.
You've expressed an interest in buying bread in the past. Would you like some sourdough?
No, thank you. I'll just have 2 bread rolls. White, please. Thanks.
No problem. If I could take your full name, please.
Oh, this is ridiculous. I just want a couple of bread rolls. I mean, who's in charge here? Is there someone I can speak to?
Of course.
Oh,
Thanks for reaching out to us today. I'm Corey, and how can I help you?
thank you. I just wanted to buy 2 bread rolls, white, and I was ready to buy them. I had the money and everything, but the code thing on my phone didn't work, and the first guy just left, and then the second lady wasn't very helpful, and I kind of lost my temper with her a little bit, but I know it's not your fault. But I just want 2 bread rolls, white, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'll see if I can look into this for you now.
I mean, it's literally just over.
So first of all, I'm gonna need your name and your date of birth.
Oh, this is stupid. This is stupid. I just want a couple of bread rolls.
So I'm loving the chats that are coming through. Thank you so much. But how many times does this happen to us? And I've seen that some of the members or the participants have said, no, I'd rather just have salad. I'll go and bake my own rolls because this is just an intense and frustrating process. So thank you for all the comments that are coming through. Yes, it is definitely British humor, but there is a very big reality in that humor. So maybe let's take a step back, and before we go into what's on the screen, how many of us think of a digital solution and we think it's going to be the best solution for our customers, for our partners, for our stakeholders in our ecosystem? But have we ever taken time to actually walk the experience and walk the journey through the online solution and digital solution that we are implementing? And that's something just to sort of ask the people on the line and in companies, when you design something, when you develop something, please walk through it yourself. Be the brand ambassador, be the proof that's in the pudding, and use and taste your own products and services. And that really is the idea of that video, apart from the humor, and just to bring a bit of light presence to this agenda today. So very interesting and very key. For me, what always struck out in online shopping, as some of the participants are saying, is yes, it does happen. And I'm asking myself, our food retailers, if I'm going to buy food and I need it today, why do you tell me it's only available to be delivered in a few days' time? You need to give me the now experience as I would experience it if I walk into a retail shop. If I walk into Woolworths, if I walk into Pick n Pay, and these are my favorite stores, that's why I'm naming them, no offense to them. So if I walk into those stores, give me the same or similar or better online experience. I cannot wait for my rolls to be eaten 2 days later when I need them now. But yeah, that is it. And coming to the power of social media, I thought, looking at this tweet, which is a very recent one, by the way, it's actually, I think, 2 days ago. But I normally follow Wendy Nola because she is our service and consumer watchdog. And dog with no disrespect, but that's what she calls herself. And if you look at adapting to the world, or companies and organizations that adapt to consumer needs and consumer behaviors, you'll see she made a note that Lyft Airline, because we are in COVID-19 and protocols don't allow you to serve food on the planes, the passengers that are leaving the aircraft will now get some snacks as they leave. And how apt is that? That really speaks to knowing your customers, understanding how the change has impacted your customers. And then on the right-hand side, my right-hand side of the screen, it is, so that's a plus and a positive from Wendy. And if you look at the right-hand side, of the screen, I think screenery is getting to me. Tim Whitfield speaks to a service provider whom we most probably know, who've got it all wrong. So I'm complaining about my line, but they're phoning me on my line to try and get hold of me. So I'll leave it there. You can deduce what that means. Coming into the topic of today, service in the now, I thought I would spend a bit of time, and it's not because I know better, but experience is a teacher. What I do want to share is this definition of service. So what is service? And I like to say that service is really that trapeze net, or the safety net for a Trapeze Act, apologies. So you must know that when you're looking for service, and service speaking to the assistance and advice provided by a company to those people who buy or use your products. And when you're looking for service, it's either something has gone wrong, or we've missed out something that actually completes that value proposition or that product, right? So something went wrong with the show if the net needs to be used by the Trapeze Act. So that's how I define service. You will have your own ways of defining service, but just remember, service is a subset of customer experience. Customer experience is the sum of all the experiences a customer has with your supplier of goods, services. It's your entire ecosystem. It's your partners, it's your third party, it's everybody that makes up the brand image. That is customer experience. I always say that customer experience brings your brand to life. So this includes your awareness, discovery, attraction, interaction. So it's the complete customer journey. Whereas customer centricity is putting customers at the heart of everything you do. This ultimately leads to increased customer satisfaction and loyalty, which ultimately does lead to an increase in profitability. So how easy is it to drive customer centricity in any organization? It's not easy, and hence culture is one of the core components and variables in a customer experience framework. But that is not the conversation today. The conversation is about service in the now and how we adapt and how we make sure as companies that we understand our customers. And yes, as you see on the screen, and borrowed from my friend in the UK, Ian Golding, who is also seen as a customer experience leader and recognized from the CXPA, which is the Customer Experience Professionals Association. And yes, just on that point, CX is a profession. You can qualify through the CXPA, and we have just created and developed a customer experience SA body that will govern and also accredit South Africans who want to pursue the profession. So that was just a side note, because this is one of the professions that are quite new in the world today and most probably more mature in the UK than in South Africa. In South Africa, CX is about 10 years old. And when I say 10 years old in terms of practice and implementation. So where does it start? It starts with understanding who your customers are. And it starts with understanding what we need to do for them, where they are at their point in time in terms of their life stage, and what their needs are. But how do you do that? So who are my customers and what do I do for them? But how do you do that? How do you get to understand who they are? And yes, it is an intense, I suppose, immersion that you have to do with your customers to understand the people that we need to serve. And serve being the operative word. So it takes a particular person to serve the next person. We know about servant leadership. It's part of the leadership, many leadership curriculars or modules that we learn. And yes, it takes a particular person to serve someone else. And that's where the word service comes through as well. But moving back to knowing and understanding your customers. So yes, it does entail huge immersion, understanding your customer segments, understanding who they are, data playing an imperative role in understanding who your customers are. I've just given an example of 4 customers, personas, as we call them in the CX world. And why personas? It's because we go into their personal life stage, their personal journeys, their likes, their dislikes. And this then gets embedded and integrated into everything that you do in your business. Well, it should. So I'm also teaching today, but I'm also sharing, and I hope that it does add value. So this is just once again for a bit of humor, a product design, I suppose, gone wrong, where all I really need as a customer is just water. Like the previous video showed, I just wanted rolls. Don't tell me about a discount. Don't tell me if I sign up for gas and electricity, I will get a discount or I will get an added benefit. No, all I want is water. And sometimes we get it horribly wrong. And really, it is about understanding, listening, being empathetic, and really putting yourself in the customer's shoes. So I suppose this then says she was the master of the inappropriate cross-sell. So this is cross-sell gone extremely wrong. And yet, this customer would have been a very happy and loyal customer to the brand if we just gave him water. That's all he needed. I'm going to share a bit on, and I'm looking at the time, I'm going to share a bit on some key service trends which we have seen emerged in the now era. And I've put in brackets, they're working from home. But please take note that I've said service trends, because as I've mentioned, service is different to customer experience. Service feeds into the umbrella of the customer experience variables and components. So service really speaks to addressing, advising when something goes wrong in a process, in a product, in the proposition, in the value chain of the brand. So some of the key service trends that we've seen come through is heightened customer expectations. So how do we deal with the customer expectations now? And what we've seen because of the uncertainty is customers really want a faster turnaround time. Our service providers, partners, everyone in the ecosystem of your brand want a faster turnaround time. The lack of quality voice and phone connections that are experienced. And my fellow colleagues on the line associates, participants, you must probably would say, yes, this is what we're experiencing. And I've taken from daily experiences and I've put it all together. And I suppose it's about understanding the customer, and that's why I've put it, understanding their needs, understanding their behavior changes, consumer changes. And that's why I've brought it to light, because it's these small things that we need to focus on in our service and customer experience strategies. So the customers are saying, give me choice on my method of communication, especially in the now era. Do not force me to only use email. Do not enforce me to only use your choice, but give me my choice. And moving on to employees. So are employees future fit or now fit? So we always use that word future fit, but I think the future fit is in the now. So are employees now fit to deal with the persona and the caliber of customer or consumer that we are dealing with now? Responsiveness, respond times, urgency. I just want those 2 bread rolls now. I will hate bread rolls after I've been through that online experience. Give me choice on my method of communication, as I've said. Increased engagement with our customers is required. We've seen that. Service recovery requires a review. So a fresh perspective. How do we ensure that our service recovery is delivered in a different manner, in a manner that the customers need right now? Self-service platforms is a way to go, and that might be one of them. Flexible working from home environments require an always-on approach. So irrespective of whether I'm getting into my vehicle and going to fetch my son, I need to make sure that in my vehicle, I'm equipped to answer any customer queries, partner queries, deal with any employee support and that they need, so support that they need. So we are now in an always-on world. So foster a human-connected employee culture is key. Keep customers informed. Chatbots and other innovative methods of communication is what will assist us in the service of the now. Moving on to the 12 current CX trends that can help you redesign your CX and service strategies, but more so your CX strategy. Once you get your CX strategy right, or your customer experience strategy right, your service pieces are your operational BAU things and your hardcore metrics that you can measure and monitor. Like I said, your turnaround time, your quotes conversions, your feedback solicited from specific customers on specific components of your product. Those are some of the differentiators in terms of service and CX. But looking at CX particularly, as I've mentioned, digital transformation, and I'm going to maybe spend a bit of time on digital transformation acceleration, because that's where we find ourselves. It's not anymore in the future. The future is now. We've heard those phrases. I think they've become cliches, like some of the MS Teams cliches that we've seen. Oops, I'm on mute. Oops, my mute button is stuck. Or, oops, sorry, I'm only dressed upper for this presentation, and I don't want to go into any of the other oops, but you can share some of the virtual oops that you've maybe had on the chat to make this session quite interesting. And the reason why I'm asking that and soliciting that from you is just to say that we are people, we are humans. And once we understand our psyche and get into the brains of our consumers, we will know how to design and solution products, processes, propositions that speak to our customer needs. So moving on or spending a bit of time on the digital transformation acceleration. As I said, 2020 was a year of digital transformation, and even before COVID-19 struck, 70% of businesses were already working on some kind of digital transformation strategies. So by the end of 2021, this number is expected to increase. And despite lockdown easing in various parts of the world, the companies which actively focus on advancing their CX will witness higher return on investment, and this would be a driving factor for companies in 2021. So it's not digital or CX, it's digital and CX. It's how do we use digital to enhance our customer experience? How do we use digital to create a cost-effective solution for our customers? Our cost to serve becomes better, and inevitably creating better price ranges for our customers. But it's how do we use digital to enhance customer experience and add value to our customers and stakeholders. And I'm just going to touch on customers wanting brands to work on diversity and inclusivity. So the new word for that piece is DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the last year, yes, also sparked an ongoing conversational about social justice and racism around the globe. Majority of our customers reported wanting the company they do business with to share a position regarding racial equity, social justice, and anti-discrimination issues, according to a 2020 Consumer Culture Report. So what are customers saying? They expect brands to become vocal about such issues and incorporate equality in their services as well as their employees. So what has social justice got to do with service and customer experience? Remember, your brand, when it comes to customer experience, is a representation of the sum of all its parts. It's a representation of the perception that your consumers, existing potential stakeholders, service providers, partners have or see or associate with your brand. So this thing called customer experience is huge. And how do we get it right? It starts with the customer. We have seen global companies get it right. And I could share a number, which you are all aware of. How do the Amazons, the Ubers, the Airbnbs, the Googles of the world, your Nikes, how do they bring their brand to life? How? Because a brand is a brand is a brand. A customer is a customer is a customer. But what is the differentiator? The differentiator is how you leave your customers after they've engaged or how the customers leave or perceive the brand after they've engaged with you. And it goes back to that notion, and I think it was Angela Meyer that said that it's not about what you say, it's not about what you give me, but it's about how you make me feel. So the emotional analysis does require dedication, understanding the psyche and the neuroscience of humans who are inevitably your consumers, your customers, your clients, your partners. That is the key. Personalization of new sorts. So your machine learning, your AI, your RPMs, those all come together. It is the most, I'd say, difficult profession if you have to compare it with sales, and no disrespect to my sales colleagues, because we all have a role to play in the ecosystem when it comes to corporate SA. But how do we bring it all together? And that is the role that a CX practitioner and professional has to embark on and impart and implement and oversee and influence and facilitate across an organization. Moving on to the other trends, overcoming data silos. So that this thing called 360 view of the customer, that is what we need right now in this new era that COVID-19 has created. So we need to overcome data silos, and that aspect or trend is a thesis on its own. I won't get into it now. Your employee experience in post-COVID world. Employee experience, your human connectedness that I spoke on previously with your employees, EX equals CX, employee experience equals customer experience. Your employees are the face of your organization. And you might say, yes, Antonia, we know that. That's what the textbooks say. But the what and the how is two different things. The how to mobilize CX strategies in an organization is the most difficult. And how do we know we get it right? We get it right, yes, through our CX metrics, our CX maturity that we embark on in the business, but we also get it right through our business metrics, like our growth metrics, like our retention metrics, like our loyalty metrics. And we need to then bring markets, or we see that the world is moving where marketers and CX will come together. I've read lots of white papers and I've spoken to lots of my counterparts across the world in terms of CX profession that say CX will be your new marketing. That's a debate for another day, and you can write what you think on the chat. I'm keen to see your thoughts and happy to connect after this. Moving on to the next trend, more focus on customer retention, as I said, and I'm sure we know what our famous Peter Drucker always taught us in business is that the key objective of any business, whether what size you are, QSE, small, large enterprise, is to find customers and keep them. So more focus on customer retention. And how will, maybe just a sneak or a quick trait on customer retention, it goes back to understanding your customers. It goes back to understanding the life stage of your customers. Some of the insurers have got it right, where data informs the next best action of their customers. And kudos to them, because they are clearly going to retain their customers much longer because they understand the customer's needs and their next best wants or actions. Customer experience will be the key brand differentiation. We've been saying that, but now we are seeing it. And customer experience will be the new competitive advantage, similar to the piece on brand differentiator. As I said, emotional analysis is what I'd say differentiates or separates service from customer experience. It's the emotive piece, but you cannot remove the functional piece and the product or the processes and the voice of the employee. You have to bring the entire framework together to create a sound customer experience strategy, which needs to be implemented across your value chain. Your service providers, if they are representing your brand, they need to show up as your brand. The ecosystem is what you look at when driving CX, opposed to looking at service or serving your consumers and customers. And I've come to the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing. And we are running a bit of a competition. I think Nani will share that with us in terms of what that competition will entail.
Thank you so much, Antonia Oakes, on that very thought-provoking and relatable talk about service and customer experience. I think a lot of us certainly could relate, and that was evident in the activity happening in the chat function. One thing certainly stood out for me is the fact that we need to go back to basics when it comes to service and customer experience. So huge thank you to you once again. We're not quite done with Old Mutual Insure. OMI is running a competition, so listen up. They're asking, so you could stand yourself a chance to win 5,000 Rand that will be donated to the charity of your choice when you answer this very simple question in your own words. So I do hope you are listening closely. What is the difference between service and customer experience? what is the difference between service and customer experience? You can type your answer in your own words in the chat, and we will announce the winner at the end of the session. Certain T's and C's do apply to this. Thank you once again to OMI Old Mutual Insure, the headline sponsor for today's session. All right, now we're going to head on over to our next speaker for today. She's no stranger to these Insure Talk streets. Her name is Thokozile Mahlangu. She is the CEO of the IISA, and she is going to be giving us an IISA update. So without any further ado, it's over to you, Thokozile Mahlangu.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is InsureTalk12. Time is moving very fast. We're almost halfway into 2021. Well, the month of May is the end of the CPD cycle, as well as the end of the current membership cycle. From a CPD perspective, if you have not updated your CPD activities, please visit our website, go into your profile and load all the activities you have done, particularly those activities that you may have done and that were not pre-approved by us. There's also things like you having presented a lecture or having presented on some technical topic. That gives you CPD hours for both preparation time and the delivery time. You may have attended technical meetings such as FIA and SAIA meetings, as I previously mentioned. Those also earn you CPD hours. You may have written an article, you may have reviewed a book or involved in writing a book. You may have presented at maybe a higher learning institution. All that gives you CPD hours. So take time, visit the website and upload your CPD activities to make sure that you remain CPD compliant. From a membership perspective, it's almost the end of the cycle, and we're excited and looking forward to the renewal. We have started with that process. We've sent out a video yesterday, which just reminds all our members of the member benefits, such as access to research content that we do on skills development and professional development. And just being a member puts you in good standing within the industry. It indicates that you've got wealth of knowledge in insurance, you've got the experience, and in certain instances, you've got the academic background as well. So we're looking forward to welcoming all our members for the renewal cycle, and we've added 1 or 2 added benefits, and we're working on adding additional benefits. One that is really exciting, we've managed to reach a deal with Avis Budget for discounted rates for all our members. So members, take advantage, renew a membership, and you can take advantage of this value. We've also negotiated with some providers on content, offering content that is CPD accredited at no charge to you. So as a member, depending on the membership level, you'll be able to access content that is free to you. This will help you comply, but also it will enhance your knowledge as you grow and develop within the professional development space. So we look forward to welcoming you back. And those that are not members, we invite you to take up membership. If you work in insurance or operate in the insurance space or the financial services as a whole, in whatever capacity, take advantage and become a member. You may be in the legal field, accounting field, actuarial, and risk management, and many others, just to mention a few. You could be in marketing as well within the insurance space. If you have been practicing within insurance, why not become an ISA professional member? We look forward to welcoming you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thokozile Mahlangu, for that update. And just a reminder once again that the IISA has accredited this session for 2.5 CPD hours. I know a lot of you will be looking forward to that as we head to the CPD deadline, which is at the end of this month. So do stay tuned until the end of the session. I've just gotten word that we are over 1,000 attendees once again in true InsureTalk style. Truly remarkable to see these consistent numbers. That is really, really fantastic news. All right, let's head on over to our next speaker now. Her name is Christine Rodriguez. She is a partner at Bowman's and is going to be talking to us today about the importance of quality of policy wording and advice. Over to you, Christine Rodriguez.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Antonio, for that very, very insightful chat. And I hope my presentation leads on to, giving proper customer service as well as elevating customer experience. I am just going to share my screen. I hope everybody can see this. So the regulatory framework intends to protect customers, and that's why we've seen the policyholder protection rules having evolved in the last couple of years to codify the principles of treating customers fairly. And you will see from the undertones of the legislation, it's not just only protecting the rights of consumers, but it's entrenching positivity, it's entrenching support, it's entrenching just sustainability within the industry. So regulators have sought to deal with both complex and services as well as the evolving regulatory landscape. And that's why we moved towards a principle-based regulation. As you know, before, our regulatory landscape was quite rules-based. And the reason for having this principle-based approach is that it allows you some form of flexibility. It allows you to have certain innovation within the products that you develop or the distribution methods that you use to distribute your products. And it's meant to enhance competitiveness. And all of this should fit into your culture in terms of how you distribute products, to who you distribute products, and the products that you develop. Now, we know that the financial sector, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, they popularized the TCF program. And what we saw was that in that jurisdiction, where there was non-compliance with the TCF principles, we saw a lot of naming and shaming of defaulting firms. We saw massive fines imposed on individuals and firms, and we even saw revoking of licenses and prosecution of various defaulters. From a South African perspective, until COVID hit, I think in most part, TCF was quite an esoteric concept until we've had all the recent court judgments, which we'll discuss a bit later. So although a lot of the arguments have been that the court judgments have been interesting decisions, if you do look at the judgments, it actually supports the regulatory framework and what is intended in terms of treating customers fairly, which are codified in the policyholder protection rules. Now, the entire customer experience is throughout the entire value chain. And what we've seen is that in June 2020, the General Code of Conduct in terms of the FASE Act was amended to actually enhance the TCF principles into the rendering of intermediary services and providing advice. Before that, there was this impression that TCF was only an insurer required compliance requirement. But what we've seen with the amendment of the General Code of Conduct is that everyone that's part of the value chain in offering insurance is expected to practice the TCF principles. So the intention is, with the amendment of the code, with the Code of Conduct, is that there's fair treatment of clients in a holistic approach, and that there isn't only one root cause that causes non-compliance. You have to look at the entire value chain to understand where the non-compliance actually originates from. So what we've seen in the UK is that in certain instances where there was TCF non-compliance, it wasn't necessary, it was based on either the product wasn't developed correctly, it was missold to the incorrect target market, or alternatively, certain incentives were put in place in order for products to be pushed, and therefore this resulted in mis-selling, or alternatively, the incorrect advice was provided in relation to the products. So as I mentioned, the amendment of the General Code of Conduct now requires any provider, so it's not just an insurer, but it's anyone that is an FSP, to establish and maintain and operate a complaints management framework that complies with various aspects. What's important is that your framework needs to be tailored for the business in which you operate in. So it has to be proportionate to this nature, scale, and complexity of the provider's business. So what that means is, if you are a small broker, your complaints management process doesn't necessarily need to be similar to that of a much bigger broker. You need to look at the scale and the complexity of your business and work around that framework so that it works for your business. And therefore, a copy paste from other people's frameworks might not be viable for your business. It also needs to be appropriate for your business model. So from an insurer perspective, if there's quite a lot of outsourcing in terms of binders or material functions, then obviously the complaints management framework needs to fit into that model as well. Also taking into account what services are being rendered, and as well who your clients are. And that's important to understand what pockets of clients are in terms of LSMs or in terms of what products have been offered to them. So the complaints need to be considered in order to determine in what manner the firm is not complying with the TCF. And that's important. So with this complaints management framework, the intention is that you gather up all the complaints, you consider what has been complained about, and then you take reasonable steps in order to attempt to remedy the complaints or to remedy certain processes within the business to ensure that there's fair treatment of customers. One of the most important aspects of this complaints management framework is that the actual complaints process mustn't inhibit the ability to actually make complaints. And this is important. And this was something that was found in the UK, where quite a few financial institutions were penalized by the FCA, was that the actual complaints process was so long-winded and so confusing that many customers actually gave up in complaining. So what must your complaints framework deal with? So there's various categorizations of complaints that need to be dealt with in terms of your complaints framework. So, for example, you need to log in complaints that relate to the design of the financial product, the financial service, or the related service. And this includes any fees or premiums or other charges related to the financial product or the financial service. There's also, you need to log complaints that relate to the actual information that's provided to clients. And this is especially true where you have financial advisors giving advice, as well as just general information to clients. And in terms of the product provider, it relates to the information that gets provided to the customer from an advertising perspective, as an example. Obviously, also deal with complaints that relate to the service performance of the product. So if the product purports to provide certain benefits, then it must perform in that manner. The other things that your complaints framework needs to deal with is accessibility, allowance for changes to the product, or even switching of products. I've seen personally, in terms of the credit life, which you've seen is now, there's been quite a few articles written in various media about credit life and the manner in which it's sold. In addition, the manner in which the switching of those credit life policies happen is also not sometimes very TCF. So where you will find in those instances that a person could, for example, take up a credit life policy online and it takes them 5 minutes. Yet when they attempt to switch their credit life policy to another service provider, it can take them days, if not weeks, because the financial institution that's provided the credit agreement insists that any switching of the insurance product has to be done at a branch. So from that perspective, that's not very TCF. The other thing that you need to consider from your complaints management framework is the manner in which you deal with complaints. So those are service deliveries, how you communicate, etc. And then obviously you need to also log in complaints relating to the actual risk claims, which includes the non-payment of the claims and the reasons, and in effect, any other complaints that center around the financial product, the rendering of intermediary services, or alternatively, the providing of advice to customers. Sorry, just go back there. So as I said, in terms of the complaints framework, your framework needs to fit the business model that you operate within. And therefore, it might be that you actually need additional categorization relating to any complaints based on the type of products that you offer, whether it's an outsourced model, whether there are binders in place, whether it's a direct placement of insurance business, or whether it's distributed through intermediaries, whether it's distributed through online platforms, etc., and also on the type of customers. So that's why it's important that your complaints framework models the manner in which you conduct business. So the legislation requires you to log the number of complaints relating to when it's received, whether you uphold those complaints, whether you reject them, the reasons, how it's escalated internally, how many are referred to the on-bid and the outcome, how many numbers and the amounts of compensation that are made after the complaints, any goodwill payments that are made, as well as any total number of complaints that are outstanding. And what these complaints will show you is all the operational risks that you have in your business, and potentially what processes you need to fix in order to minimize these operational risks. So with the data, you'll be able to pick up if the complaints relate to the product design, product knowledge in terms of the manner in which it is sold, whether internally there's proper complaints management, about how the complaints are managed externally, in the sense that if you are distributing, for example, through binders or through brokers, the manner in which they deal with the complaints and how it impacts the product provider. It will also illustrate if there's mis-selling, if there's any conflicts of interest, whether the communication to customers is good or bad, or what message is being communicated. And importantly, it assists in data management for all product providers or financial services providers in terms of complying with TCF. So the importance of having your complaints management framework and in obtaining all this data is that in general, it will allow management, be it a financial services provider or a product provider, to make good decisions because they will receive accurate information. It will be timely, it will be relevant to their business, it will be relevant to the customer, and it will allow for eventually consistent treatment of customers across the board. And also all this data will enable financial services providers and product providers to make sure that their culture complies with the TCF requirements and that customers end up having a good experience whenever they take out an insurance product or when they claim, or alternatively, even when there's a complaint relating to a product or a service that's rendered. And that's important. Just because a customer doesn't complain doesn't necessarily mean that they are happy, or it doesn't necessarily mean that they're a loyal customer. Maybe they're not complaining because the process is too cumbersome, or alternatively, they've already decided to cancel a policy or move on to another provider because the entire process is the entire sales process or the product doesn't meet needs. And that's why it's important to analyze your data. So that's how the customer experience and regulation fits into product providers and service providers providing intermediary service and advice in terms of insurance products. Now, what's important is what you'll see in the PPRs is the use of the word plain language. And I've taken the definition straight out of the PPRs. And you'll see that the language that is meant by plain language is that it's clear and it's easily understandable. It avoids uncertainty or confusion, that it's adequate and appropriate for the product or the circumstances, which could be the complaints process, it could be the sales process, and it's obviously centered around the knowledge of the person who is you selling the product to, you're offering the product to, and who you're trying to target. So the issue is that plain language is not meant to be that it's language, dumbed down language. It's just meant to be easy and more communicable language so that the lay person who doesn't necessarily understand insurance concepts because of their level of education understands exactly what they are getting when they purchase the product. And plain language is required in terms of the adverts that get put out, the disclosures that get made, in policy wording, and in fact, in all communications, be it between the insurer and the insured, or alternatively, the intermediaries and their clients. Everyone should be aiming to ensure that there's consistent information in a clear and understandable format that's provided in order to avoid confusion and uncertainty. So the reason why this is important is because of the latest court judgments that have come out. And I know they relate to business interruption claims. And I'm not going to discuss the facts of those matters or whether the decisions relating to the business interruption claims were correct or not. What I want to focus on is the principles that have come out of those cases, because it's important going forward in the manner in which you draft policy wordings, you offer policy wordings, and you explain products to clients. And what's important is that the days of copying and pasting policy wordings is no longer acceptable, because the copying and the pasting taken from various sources can sometimes lead to the confusion because of the inconsistencies and the ambiguity and the gray areas that then arise out of the policy wordings. So in the null case, what's important in terms of this case was that the insurer in this instance only highlighted to the customer the cancellation relating to the policy in the event of any dishonest or fraudulent actions on the part of the policyholder, but never highlighted to the policyholder that at any point in time, the insurer itself could just cancel the policy for no reason. And because of this, and because it wasn't highlighted to the customer was under the impression that it had a policy for its natural life. And the result was that after the insurer cancelled the policies, and this went to court, what the court said was that just telling policyholders to read policy wordings is no longer sufficient, because you need to look at the target market to whom you've sold that product. You've got to determine whether their understanding of those concepts will obviously be understood by them. And if the intention is that there are certain clauses that are so important to be highlighted to the customer, such as cancelling for no reason, then this needs to be highlighted to the customer. And what the court also said is that it didn't appreciate that the insurer could cancel based on a unilateral decision that only benefited the insurer and not policyholders. And so this is important in terms of any exclusions that are made in terms of the policy. If there's something that is a new exclusion, so I mean the perfect example is COVID and any of its variant viruses, etc., is to highlight these exclusions to the customer so that they're aware that anything that could occur which results in loss because of those particular exclusions is not covered in the policy. So it's important then as a broker or an intermediary who's giving advice and intermediary services to have intimate knowledge of the policy and what it covers and what it doesn't cover. And if you're unsure about what the product covers or does not cover, then you need to ensure that you have adequate training from the product provider. And if there's any ambiguity relating to the wording, then it's best to seek clarity from the insurer to explain what is meant in terms of the policy wording. The next one is the cafe chameleon. And what the court said in this judgment was that contracts of indemnity should be interpreted to be reasonable and fair. And reasonable and fair, not only for the benefit of the insurer, but reasonable and fair also for the customer. So the court went on to say that insurance contracts should be construed in favor of the insured because it mustn't be interpreted in a way that defeats the necessity of what the insured is intending to claim from, or what the indemnity the insured is looking to get, and this then leads into one of the TCF requirements about selling products that meet the needs of customers. So if you go off and you sell a product and a business interruption policy as an example, that you say it doesn't matter what happens, if you're not able to conduct business and your business is closed down, you will have cover. Then the insured believes that in the event that anything happens and his business or her business is closed down, they will be able to claim indemnity under the policy. The court went on to say that if the policy is susceptible to two interpretations, then the interpretation that sustains the claim, that covers the loss, will be the preferred. So again, if there's a gray area in the policy wording or it's ambiguous, understand that as the insurer or even as the intermediary who may have issued the policy to the client, if there's going to be any form of ambiguity and you are going to and the policy is going to be challenged, it's more likely that the court will favor the insured in that instance. Obviously, relating to the business interruption policies, one of the issues that arose in all these cases was that insurers stated that they did not ever expect to cover something like a COVID or any type of pandemic, and that the insurance policy was not drafted, nor were premiums charged to cover such a risk. And the court said that when you interpret a policy, you must look to establish what the parties intended and not what their unexpressed thoughts were. Therefore, if there's something that you do not want to cover, and this might require people thinking into the future to other uninsurable risks, such as climate risks or anything like that, that it's then rather recorded in the policy wording so that customers are fully aware of what they will get indemnity for and what they will not. Fact cactus. The court also said that the usual rules of interpretation must be utilized. You need to take into context in the wording the purpose, and that you need to prefer a commercially sensible approach, and that this commercially sensible approach cannot be at odds with what the purpose of the agreement was for. And the court defined what commercially sensible meaning was in this instance. And it said, although you interpret the contract in accordance with commercial principles and good business sense, you also need to interpret it so that there's a fair and sensible application of that commercially sensible meaning. And what the court meant by this was that even if an insurer, for example, had never intended to cover a pandemic or had never intended to cover a virus such as COVID, the impression that was provided to the insured was that the risk was covered. And therefore, what's important was that in that instance, the insurer should have interpreted the wording in a manner that was fair and sensible. And perhaps in that sense, the insurer should have maybe sought to look for a settlement with the client or come to some form of agreement as to what the policy would cover. The court also went on to say that where there are provisions in the contract which limit or exclude an obligation to indemnify, they will always be interpreted restrictively because insurance contracts have a risk transferring process, and it's on the duty of the insurer to clearly spell out what risks it wants to exclude. So therefore, if there's real ambiguity in the policy, the contra preferentum doctrine applies. And the contra preferentum doctrine means that if you drafted the policy wording, the interpretation will not be done in the favor of the person that drafted the policy wording. So that's something for you to think about. In addition, if you have brokers or binder holders drafting wordings, it's important that you understand this, because likewise, any ambiguity or any liability that could arise from the policies that you write yourself could potentially lead to some professional indemnity claims. The latest one, which we've seen in the media, is the King Price judgment. And again, it's centered around the ambiguity relating to what was an agent acting on behalf of the insured. In this instance, because of the facts, the court found that it wasn't the insured person that provided the fraudulent information. The insured person asked the regular driver of the vehicle to just give information to the insurer as required. That particular person wanted to avoid disclosing that they were intoxicated and had been driving recklessly. And although they gave that statement to the insurer, the court found that the giving of that statement by the regular driver did not elevate that person to the status of agent. That person was just merely a witness and merely provided information to the insurer. And because of the wording which say in the policy which used acting on behalf of and the ambiguity that it created, it was interpreted against the insurer for the benefit of the insured. And the outcome of the case was that an insured party should not be penalized for fraudulent or dishonest information which emanates from a third party who is not insured or someone who is acting on behalf of the insured. That is, if they are not an agent of the insured. So obviously, if you are a broker, you obviously have a mandate to act on behalf of the insured, this wouldn't be relevant. But if, for example, there's a witness that's called in to give information and they happen to lie in giving information to the insurer, what this is saying is the fact that they give information to the insurer that could be incorrect shouldn't prejudice the insured's claim under the policy. So what we will see is most potentially the wording in policy wordings being strengthened in terms of what an agent is, the definition in the policy wording, or in the alternative, the insurers might expand non-indemnity in the event that any fraudulent information or information is provided by a third party. However, I need to caution you, you need to look, before you go off and amend the policy, you need to have a look at the type of customer you are dealing with, look at the type of policy that you are dealing with, and see whether by amending the policy, you could inadvertently then create a non-TCF product. But what I'm trying to illustrate is that our courts are keen to enforce our regulatory regime, and they are keen to enforce the principles of TCF. And it's important to take note that TCF is a requirement in all steps of the distribution channel, and it's not just limited to the insurer. And as the agent of the insured, if there's anything in the policy that you yourself do not understand or you think could create ambiguity, then you need to ask the insurer what is meant by that wording. Because if we are to have another situation such as another pandemic or another massive risk, as insureds have become a lot more, they've pushed to go after insurers in terms of litigating. Likewise, if they feel that their agent has not acted in their best interest or has not disclosed adequately the product conditions and the terms that have been sold in that product, they will then go after that broker as well for a potential professional indemnity claim. So as I've mentioned, our courts are looking at enforcing TCF and ensuring consumers' rights are protected. TCF is an issue that needs to be implemented and complied with everyone in the sector, just not only the insurer. Handling of complaints effectively ensures that there's more exclusivity for customers in the financial sector. As you know, the Financial Sector Regulation Act requires there to be transformation, a lot more diversity, and a lot more financial inclusion. If you handle your complaints adequately, that inclusiveness is entrenched, because the customers then will trust you as a broker or intermediary, or alternatively will trust the insurer as the product provider. Also understand that because TCF codified in the PPRs is a principle-based piece of legislation, it will continue to evolve over time because customers' needs change, the situations change, and it's important that therefore your processes and your complaints framework, your management framework, and as well as your products adapt as well to ensure constant TCF compliance. In general, if there's any ambiguity relating to policy wordings, they are not likely to be interpreted in favor of the insurer, but in favor of the customer. And therefore, it's important to be very clear as to what is intended to be covered and not covered in the policy wording. As a broker and intermediary, it's essential that you get product training. And this doesn't mean just attending a couple of courses and skimming through the T's and C's of the policy. You need to understand exactly what the policy will cover and will not cover, and you need to communicate this adequately to the customer. If this is not done, potentially next round, if we do have a similar event such as COVID, brokers themselves might find themselves on the hook for liability for not having adequately advised customers. So in conclusion, TCF is intended to build the foundation of trust in terms of the entire value chain in the insurance sector. It's something that needs to be complied with by everyone in terms of product development, distribution, and the manner in which you deal with complaints, as well as the products that are offered to customers. So be acutely aware that customers are becoming far more educated and are more willing to litigate in the future. And in order to avoid this, if complaints and issues are dealt adequately and in a fair manner, and understanding that TCF doesn't mean that the customer is always right, but rather that the customer has been heard and the complaints and the issues have been dealt fairly and adequately. This will then result in a far more TCF compliant financial institution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine, for that very insightful presentation. And of course, for emphasizing the importance of a TCF, we do appreciate it. A reminder once again to all our attendees that Bowmans is an event partner here today. So a huge thank you once again to Bowmans. All right, let's head on over to our next speaker now. Tony Fanikak is the editor-in-chief at Cover Magazine and is going to be giving us an industry media update. Before we head on over to Tony, though, I've been told by a little birdie that it is Tony's birthday today. So happy birthday, Tony. And thank you for choosing to celebrate a part of it with us here at InsureTalk. We hope you have a splendid day. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm finally 35 years old in my head. It's just a pity that my body is not the same. But I'm here to deal with that. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you again for CN&CO for allowing me this opportunity to just do a quick talk. I'm going to share my screen quickly. And I'm deviating slightly. I am in the media and I do hold the media myself, social media, all of that, responsible for the stories, the narrative, the messages that goes through the media. So today I'm going to spend a very, very quick journey through my opinion that the Rainbow Nation a myth? And according to me, obviously it is not. So please excuse, I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. If anybody would like to have these slides afterwards, you are more than welcome to get them. So basically, from especially a media and a social media perspective, we are bombarded with negative news on a daily basis. It's just the way that life is. But I think for a short period, which I call our last decade, the dream of a rainbow nation might have seemed to be gone, but it is pretty much alive, and I think that it is growing stronger. I think all you need to do is reflect a little bit on how far we have actually come. So I'm going to run through these very quickly. Democracy, we've got a globally recognized constitution. Everyone over the age of 18 has the right to visit. We have had to vote. We have had 6 peaceful elections since the dawn of democracy. We have transfer of leadership between several presidents. We have an opposition party governing the 2nd or 3rd most important province in our country, and 3 of the 5 metros and several municipalities. We have a parliament where opposition parties can openly criticize each other, and everyone in the country can watch it on live television. That is democracy. So if we look then at apartheid, we have no white-only signs anymore. We have to celebrate that every single day because it was a travesty of justice. Our educational institutions cater for people of all race, color, or religion. I daily see mixed-race couples freely expressing their friendship, love publicly. We all have the same identity document with no restrictions on where we may travel, work, or live in this country, which is an absolute, complete change from where we were. Legislator, the most important aspect here is that the fact that we have a formal process for the creation of legislation. All legislation is measured against our constitution. Any legislation can be challenged in court, and it has been done so successfully several times. Judiciary, the independence of our judiciary has been illustrated several times. Yes, we've got problems, but it's independent and it works. Any person, no matter what their standing in society, have equal rights before the law. Our judiciary has made numerous rulings against the governing party. Several senior members have been and are being pursued by our judicial system for alleged wrongdoing. We even have an ex-president and a member of the ruling party currently appearing in court on criminal charges. That is unknown for a developing country. Media, we have one of the best investigative media sectors in the world. Journalists are writing articles and books raising claims about criminal activity and impropriety, even against the most senior people in our ruling party. We have a strong social voice with no internet or social media censorship. Again, something incredible to celebrate. Transformation. Yes, only 33% of top positions in management were held by people of color in 2017. This is by far too low, but it is up from almost 0% in 1994. Incredible. 64.5% of mid-level positions in industry were held by non-whites in 2017. That's up from also a very, very low percentage in 94. We've been creating depth in the recruitment pot for top positions, which is already starting to reflect in top echelons. We must celebrate that. 1 in 3 managerial positions were held by women in 2018. And then anecdotally, just look around yourself whenever you go to industry events, whenever you enter offices, which doesn't happen much now, but we are transforming and we are making a difference. We are gaining ground in getting an equal society. Social solidarity. All over the country, we're learning and working together to improve and protect our communities. We see that on Facebook all the time. It is incredible to see people of all races coming together to fix things. During COVID, communities all over the country came together to feed people in need. By the millions we fed people, just in our small town, here in Simonstown, the communities hand in hand with each other were serving 2,000 meals a day for the poor. We have strong civil society action groups, OTA, Treatment Action Campaign, Mufundisa Development Trust, Council for Churches, Gift of the Givers, Equal Education, Move 1 Million. That list goes on and on and on. Those are civilian, those are people like me and you making a difference to our country. So lastly, long live the Rainbow Nation. We might have lost a decade, but the foundation is solid. We now need the people and the leaders that will build on that foundation. As individuals and businesses, all we need to do is, with one hand, strive to be and do the best we can, while at the same time, with the other hand, stretch it out to help others to be and do the best that they can, because everybody can play in this. So thank you very much for that opportunity. I hope that that assisted a little bit in creating some positivity for all of us. Thank you to the sponsors of this event, to CN&CO, and to everybody listening to me today. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Tony Fanikak, for that update. All right, we're going to head on over to our entertainment segment now. It is something different. It's something new. You definitely want to stick around for this one. What's more, one lucky attendee could win themselves 1,000 Rand. We will announce the winner at the end of the session. All right, so this is a virtual quiz and a virtual room that will be facilitated by Dwayne Rockwell. So stick around for this one. It's going to be tons of fun. A reminder that CN&CO events does facilitate these virtual team builds, so do get in touch with them if this is something you are looking to do in the near future. Without any further ado, then it is over to you, Dwayne Rockwell.
Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everybody. And before I do anything, I would like you all please to put your hands together for Noni, your MC, who is just absolutely superb. So online, wherever you are right now, I think a round of applause must go to the MC and also to all of the speakers who I think have done an absolutely superb job. Like Noni said, this is a virtual game show. This is your chance to win 1,000 Rand in cash. I've only got 15 minutes. So the whole idea is I am not in any way, shape or form going to be wasting time. What I'm going to be doing right now is asking you to pick up your cell phones, and we're going to go for the very first time. We're going to go to the instructions in terms of how you are going to get yourself involved. So ladies and gentlemen, right now on screen, www.menti.com. All of the details, you grab your cell phone now, you log in via menti.com, log in the number 53487369, or alternatively, if you are higher grade as far as technology is concerned, please just simply put your phone over the QR code, log yourself in. You are now officially going to be part of what I said is the virtual game show. We are also counting down, hope we're recording as well, to give us a really, really good example of everything that we are needing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are logged on, please, there's a heart. There's a little heart right below the actual logo. There's a heart. Please hit those hearts. I need hundreds of people. We need hundreds. We've got the capability to do 2,000 people online. So please do me a favor right about now. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you please to enter your actual name. Please put your actual name in now. You've got an opportunity to do so. So put in your actual name, because what's going to happen is at the end of the 15 minutes, 10 questions in total, we will be able to tell you who the winner is. Look, that is the most impressive looking emoji page I've ever seen online. And I put my glasses on, it looks even more impressive. So ladies and gentlemen, I've got almost 200 people playing. If you do log in late, you can still do so, not a problem. You simply log in via the details on the top of the screen. They will be there for the duration of the show. If anything whatsoever, Olivia Baptista, Precious Tari, a leader. I've got lots of loving hearts coming my way. I've got almost 200 people now playing. Late, mind blown. Do you see what you can do? This is why Mentimeter is such a great engagement tool, and this is why we are able, via these particular games and fun and games online, to really take your engagement up a level on the engagement side of things. So ladies and gentlemen, I've got over 200, 230, 240 people now logged in. Right, what we are going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is say welcome to the virtual game show, the virtual quiz that's going to take 15 minutes of your time and could potentially put 1,000 Rand in your pocket at the end of the show. Listen, you guys are killing me. I'm loving the comments already. Please keep those coming. This is the way to do things online. It's all about the energy, the geest, the enthusiasm, and the willingness just to have a little bit of fun and let go. You've now got officially 20 seconds to put on your cell phone who won the Best Actor Oscar Award at the end of April, just a couple of weeks ago. Who was it? Was it Joaquin Phoenix? Was it Chadwick Boseman? Was it Anthony Hopkins, or was it Tyler Perry? Now, please don't put in the person that you hope would have won it. I need the actual answer. This is a little bit of consternation every time I do this particular question lately, because of the fact that obviously the whole point is that we have ladies and gentlemen, the correct answer is Anthony Hopkins. Again, like I said, the problem is you put Chadwick Boseman in because that's the sentimental choice. That's the one that you wanted to win the game show. But quite the opposite, ladies and gentlemen. It says quiz not open. Ladies and gents, it's definitely open. If it says on your handset quiz not open, simply hit the refresh button. That'll do everything for you right there. Refresh, try again, hit that, we'll be back in, no problem whatsoever. So 65 people got it right. I've got over 200 people playing. I want you now, please, ladies and gentlemen, to do two things for me. One, I want you to listen to the song that's playing in the background. This is called Waka Waka. Waka Waka is a hit song from the 2010 Soccer World Cup. It is up and running. I've just checked on our side as well. The Soccer World Cup has its roots in which African country? This song, if you listen to it, I'm now going to hit the next question. So you've got 20 seconds to tell me, ladies and gentlemen, where the song Waka Waka comes from. Where the song comes from. It has its origin in one of those 4 countries that I showed you up on screen. You've now got, like I said, I'm giving you a bit more time to hear the music as well, right? I'm assuming that's going to enthuse you, excite you, and energize you as well. All of those things. Come on, let's go. You've only got 15. Is it Mozambique? Is it Cameroon, Somalia, or is it Kenya? Which of those 4 do you think it is? Listen. And if you listen, it might give you a clue. And then again, it might not, to be perfectly honest, because they're singing in English. Unless, of course, Waka Waka is from this particular country. I've got no idea, actually. So the correct answer is, we are now going to reveal those. Behind me, you can see that Cameroon, ladies and gentlemen. Cameroon. Marcus, there we go. Cameroon is the correct answer. I'm loving the fact that you guys are having fun online. Keep those comments coming. That's why I do this for a living. I love this. Right, it is Cameroon because we like to give you proof. Those of you who are a little bit skeptical in terms of where it comes from, don't worry about it. It's fun. It's a fun game show. Now, ladies and gentlemen, 2 more faces in one. There are actually, believe you me, there are 2 faces in one. Now, because I know the answer, lekker man, lekker, I'm getting lots and lots of really great comments. Thank you so much. What I'm going to do is 2 more faces. You've had a chance to have a look. I'm now going to give you an options in terms of just who those 2 faces are. So question number 3 of 10, not of 20, of 10. I don't have as much time as that. Obviously, the one I think is very easy. I really do. Samuel L. Jackson and Idris Elba. Morgan Freeman and Samuel L. Jackson. Is it Will Smith and Idris Elba? Or is it Will Smith and Denzel Washington? People have got so much time that they're actually doing it in the chat group and they are doing it on the handset. Okay, you're just showing off now, to be perfectly honest. You're just showing off. So the 2 faces that are morphed into one, ladies and gentlemen, are Will Smith and Denzel Washington, which deserves something. It deserves more music. By the way, we get the opportunity always. We do a lot of things online and everything we do is a lot about the music. It really is always about the music because the music is the enthuse. We definitely will look into this for our company. Fantastic. That's brilliant. So there we go. By way of proof, there are the 2 faces separated. They're both good-looking fellas. Good-looking fellas. I'm assuming all of the hearts that are coming in now are not for me, but for the 2 good-looking dudes behind me. So ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Next one is, this is a bit of a mind bender. Are your brain cells prickled? Are you energized? Are you feeling good? Are you able to count the amount of triangles you can see in that one picture? So there's one triangle. I'm going to tell you that I'm going to give you options, okay? This is awesome. I'm on a game show for the first time in my life. Well, you and me. No, I love it. Welcome to Tony Stark. You have a lot of energy. Love it, man. Okay, you've made me blush. I've just been called Tony Stark and I've got energy. 2 of the best compliments I can have paid to me. So thank you. Now, as we do this, we go to the question now. Once again, it's fastest finger first. The faster you answer, the more points out of a potential 1,000 you will win. How many triangles? Look at your phone. I'm going to give you some options. And I'm going to say to you with tears in my eyes, 13, 15, 10, 21, 17. It's not 10, okay? I'm going to give you one clue. It's not 10. A lot of people in the group were saying 10. It's not 10. You know what happened? You got to a certain point and went, okay, I don't feel like counting anymore. I'm done. 10. I'm done. Finished. By the way, thank you so much to Mark for running the show backstage. Thank you, Mark. Now, the correct answer is 13. 112 of you got that absolutely correct. 112 of you got it correct. A whole bunch of you did not. So there you have it. The computer does what it needs to do. It's simply, never mind, you know that was me. That was my fault. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep on going. 13. If you'd like to know where the 13 are, you're going to have to look it up online because we don't have time to go through that now. For the first time today, I've only got about 6 minutes left. I'm going to get this in if it's the last thing that ever happens. In the lead after 5 questions. These are not our winners. This is simply in the lead after the first 5. Kobus Vos, Karabu Mokwena, Mike, Michelle Hancock, Winchester, Marina, Charmaine, Gavin, Sue, Johan. This means, to me, quite honestly, that all of them want to win the 1,000 Rand, because here's the thing, with no name, it didn't give me the name. Obviously, I've got no idea who to give it to. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got 6 to go, but I'm going to go really, really quickly. What I want you to do now is I want you to listen very carefully to a song that I'm going to play you. It's a South African classic. So while I'm doing, that was a booby trap question. You know, you were a little right. It was a little bit. Yes, it was. It was one of those escape game type of challenges. Listen carefully to the song, only a little bit. That's all you get. That's all you get. So look at your phone. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again quickly. Have a listen. Which one is it? Is it Nkalagata? Is it Burnout? Is it Weekend Special? Is it Fantasy? Yep. Come on, I've got 200 people who voted already. Come on. If you're not dancing in your chair right about now, there's just something wrong with you, folks. The correct answer is, as you can see any minute now behind me, it is Burnout. It is by the incredible, look at that. Some people actually, who said, nobody, 26 people said Nkalagata. No, I'm tempted to play Nkalagata for you now so you can hear the huge differences. Like I say, somebody said good dancing skills. That's somebody who doesn't know much about dancing, but I'll take it. I'll take it. All right, there we go. Sipo, Hot Sticks, Mabuse. Thank you so much, Marky. Burnout it is. We've got 4 questions to go, ladies and gentlemen. This is 7 of 10. The suspense is building. I'm going to stop that song, put the other music back on because I want you guys to keep music in the background. I want you, what is the name of the boat that was stuck in the Suez Canal earlier this year? About 6 or 8 weeks ago? Stopped world trade all around the world. Is it ever long, ever would, ever lost, or ever given? I love the fact that you guys think it's that one. It's this one. Let's get down to business indeed. Come on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you realize, in fact, when you see that it's across the board like that, that means basically people just went there 4 choices. I've got 25% chance of getting it right. I'll push the first one. It is ever given. Ever given. And just because I know people are going to fight with me on this one, I'm going to show you a picture. That's the parking. It was obviously a sideways bay. He didn't realize you can't park sideways in this particular bay. I did say he, because there was a vicious rumor going around that it was not a male captain. It was. Don't ever. One more thing right there, ever given. On the side, you can see Evergreen. Evergreen is the name of the shipping company. Ever given, it's the name of the boat. Right, so here we go. We've got 3 questions to go. Before I get to the announcement of the big winner, Noni will then tell you how that's all going to work in terms of getting it to. It had to be, man. Well done. Question number 8. I've got about 2 minutes left of my particular slot. Remember, I'm going as quickly as I can purely to get this all in, right? In what year was Facebook launched? Some people love Facebook. Most people, well, never mind. Some people hate it. Me, personally, I could live without it. But nevertheless, 2002, 2004, or 2005. Which of those years? Again, you have the opportunity, obviously, to choose one of those for the full maximum points. The faster you go. Proudly South African tunes in the background as well. 2004. In other words, for 17 years, Facebook has been messing with us. It has ruined our downtime. We just have no more boredom time because of Facebook. Anyway, let me stop. How many countries in Africa begin with a letter M? How many countries in Africa begin with a letter M, okay? Now I'm going to ask you just very quickly to go through the one. Please don't say Nigeria. Nigeria is not one, right? That's a speech defect. And do not say Mzambwe. That's also not one. Folks, stay with me. I'm going to give you about 4, 5, 3 minutes. I don't know, 1 minute, 1 second, 10 seconds. I've only got 2 minutes left. I'm getting signals in the studio saying your time is almost up, darling. Move. So it is question 9 of 20. I cannot believe I'm going to get 10 questions in 15 minutes. But what a jolt. I'm loving this. So now look behind me while you hear a great South African song playing. What color is that? Now, I don't mean there in the picture. I mean when it's actually in color. Is it black, red, green, gold, white, or brown? If you get this wrong, you get your South African passport taken away. This is Prince KB. "260 people have voted. 260 people playing for the 1,000 Rand. The correct answer is gold. Fantastic. Everybody who said anything else other than gold? Really, people, really. This has made you just a little bit embarrassed about the South African flag. 1 minute to go. We've got one question to go. I'm loving the fact that we've timed this so fairly and squarely. Ladies and gentlemen, final question to find out who is going to win the 1,000 Rand. Nope, not that one. You've done that one already. I'm being a bit of a nana. Let's keep on going. There's the answer. Ignore me. I've still got one question to go. Still got one question to go. Here we go. You ready? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say a very big thank you as well. How many countries? We didn't do it, did we? We never actually got to it, did we, Mark? How many countries? We skipped one completely. Come on, we'll try. How many countries? It's a trick session. You know how these things work. How many countries in Africa begin with the letter M? You were still thinking about it. You suddenly think that's how the escape game works. By the way, full of tricks, corners, puzzles, confusions, and the quiz. We do all these things. We're crazy as we possibly can be. How many countries begin with the letter M? Somebody say 7. Who said 5? Hey, no, you forgot the islands. Madagascar, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania, Mauritius, Morocco, or Mozambique. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you please to do the following, and you're not going to do this, Mark. In fact, you want to put me back on full screen while we do something. I want to make you guys absolutely sure of something. If we do this for you guys, what is going to happen is the general idea is in whatever time you've got, we will obviously give you as much fun as we possibly can, give you an opportunity, like I said, to do what you need to do. I want you, please, everybody, to have a look down on this particular leaderboard. You're about to see it on screen. I'm only skipping down now because of the fact, obviously, that what happened was we are not doing all of the questions as we normally do. So, ladies and gents, as soon as I've got this up, I want you please to look as carefully as you possibly can. I think right about now, Mark's going to put all this back up on screen again. I'm jumped to the end because obviously we don't have enough time. Ladies and gentlemen, forget about the questions. The answer is this. Forget about all of this. You're simply going to give the round of applause that our winner deserves. Like I said, the big deal is to give that 1,000 Rand away. And there it was, ladies and gentlemen. As you see, the answers come up on screen. And that's pretty good. Somebody has got 7,000 points. Kath Albertine, wherever Kath Albertine is. Kath Albertine, you've won a 1,000 Rand prize. I've got absolutely no idea how it's going to get to you, but I can guarantee you that Noni will know. Marina, Sanette, Howard, Sue. How did I get stuck on Howard? Really? Sue, Karabo, Johan, Mike, Chantel, Anne-Marie. Our top 10 deserve one of these. And the winner deserves one of these. Winner. I just don't. Well done. I just won being on this show. Somebody, if that was you, Kath, I've got to say, unbelievable. What I'm also going to say is whatever you guys are doing for the rest of the day, in fact, please, in the chat group, on the Zoom call, send a little bit of a message to Kath as well. I'm going to send this to the guys in the studio so they know who's won. I'm going to say thank you so much for today. You guys have been absolutely superb. I hope you've had a little bit of fun, and I hope that you like what we do, and you will see us on your particular platform with your company soon. You never know. My name is Dwayne Rockwell. Thank you so much for playing, and enjoy the rest of the session. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
got such good news to share. For the past few months, I've been working tirelessly, partnering up with CN&CO to put together the Insurance Directory, an online directory supported with an annual print publication. It's not just for underwriters or insurers, it's for the whole financial industry. We're including everyone from your reinsurers and insurance companies and underwriters all the way through to your medical aids and investment houses. Make sure you're listed, and brokers, head over to the site and find the perfect product for your clients. But most important, go to our website or follow the link after this and make sure that you sign up to get your free copy. We're going to print soon.
Thank you so much, Dwayne Rockwell. What a fun and energy-filled entertainment segment. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I think that our attendees did too. If you're sitting at the office or at home and you're thinking you want to do something similar for your organization, for your team, do get in touch with the CN&CO events team to assist. You can email them at events@cnandco.com. That is events@cnandco.com. Congratulations to the winner for winning that. We will be in touch with you shortly. All right, let us head on over now to our next speaker for the day. He goes by the name of Nico van Logerenberg. He is the Managing Director of Automatic Sprinkler Inspection Bureau, and he's going to be talking to us about the minimum requirements for sprinklers. Without any further ado, then it is over to you, Nico.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for this opportunity. And hopefully I can share some valuable information with you this morning. And thanks for Dwayne for that entertainment as well. I can relate. Keeping people entertained on online courses for 9 hours of the day is quite a challenge. So yeah, that was very entertaining. So thanks for that. Without keeping you too long, I'm just going to put my slides on, and then we can just jump into this. I just want to say thank you for CIB for making this or giving me this opportunity to share with you guys minimum requirements when it comes to fixed fire protection. I want to give you guys a small and brief introduction to the ASIB for those of you that are not familiar with the ASIB. The Automatic Sprinkler Inspection Bureau was founded in 1970 by the 35 short-term insurance companies that were operating at the time. So the general philosophy was that whilst the insurance companies may differ in respect of the premiums and ratings, they would not do so for the requirements when it comes to fixed fire protection, and a uniform inspection standard was essential for them. Now, this remains a challenge in the modern day, where the interpretation of the different codes, or what we get a lot, the goalposts move. It's simply because of misinformation or people not aware of the actual facts. When you've got different types of installation codes, it still remains quite a challenge to present a uniform inspection standard. So part of our function as the ASIB is to inspect the installation, and that protects our client's interest and automatically building the buildings and life associated with the occupants. Sorry, I just want to get my chat window to the one side. Sorry for that. So coming back to that slide, so the ASIB inspects the installation to protect the client's interest and automatically that of life safety and property protection. So you have the National Building Regulation, SANS 10400. So excuse me if I get a little bit technical, but that's what I do. That stipulates the minimum requirements for buildings as we build them. And the minimum requirements insofar as occupancy and sizing of the buildings. And therefore, it's looking to protect life primarily. So where sprinkler systems comes in, we are looking at protecting the building and automatically the life of the occupancies. So coupled with that, ASSA provides virtually the only method of ensuring that the installed system complies with internationally recognized standards and codes. Unfortunately, we do have a national standard SABS, which is quite archaic. We are actively involved with SABS in updating this code so we can get a new national installation standard when it comes to sprinkler systems. However, it's left the ASIB with no other option but to keep current with First World by adopting known and proven tests and also codes that suit the South African building environment, and then also creating that minimum requirement for the insurer to take on that specific risk. So coupled with that is a comprehensive, it's tailor-made inspection reports specific to the client's risk. And as we'll see in a moment, there are so many different types of risks. It's virtually every single building is different to the other. And another service that we provide is also interpreting the requirements for fixed fire protection. And we consult with the fire brigades, the sprinkler installers, your insurance companies and brokers, your property developers, the engineers, architects, consultants. The list is non-exhaustive. So that is our primary function as the ASIB. And as I said, by issuing that custom report or custom template that's fit for that specific clientele, we look at providing that in order for them to manage that risk, and then for the insurer automatically to be able to see what his exposure is for that specific property or building. I'm going to share with you guys some statistics. We need to put this into perspective for you. So I've got some fire loss statistics. I'm not going to bore you too long with them. We can make these slides available so you guys can go through them in your own time. It's a lot of information to just be flooded with, but I'm going to give you some perspective of the reality and the gravity of fire loss statistics in South Africa from about 2016 right up to 2019. So these statistics are courtesy of the FPSA, and the 2016 loss statistics published in 2018, we had approximately 41,873 recorded fires for that year. That is about 115 fires every day on average. And then recorded insurance payouts came to just under about 10 million per day, if I'm reading that correct. The residential losses increased by over 650 million. And that was a 55% increase from that previous year, if we have to look at that 2015 statistic. Now, in some way, going from 2016 to 2017, it becomes quite a bleak picture where you've got 49,000 fires recorded versus your initial, what was that, 41. And that means you've got an average of about 135 fires for the 2017 period. And those insurance payouts came to just over 15 million per day. And 51% of those financial losses were residential, and then 21%, you're looking at your commercial and industrial. I've got another slide coming up where I'll show you that scale. So the cost of the industrial losses increased by about 95 million. So that's a 42% increase from that previous year. And that's quite significant, I would say, and quite a challenge for any insurer to keep up with those type of losses. So the cost of the residential losses increased by 930 million, literally a 50% increase on that previous year, if we had to compare the statistics. And the total financial losses increased by about 340%. That's 3.85 billion a year on a 10-year comparison. So that's quite significant. It's very scary when we look at this. So apologies again, following on that positive note and into something like this, but this is the reality and the gravity of fire losses that we have in South Africa. Now, I'm going to just put on my little pointer here. I'm going to point out the warehouses. You guys can see we've got the warehouses. Now, this is your 2019 breakdown of fire losses. And if we look at the warehouse losses, you can see we've got a figure there. What is that, 6.2 billion? That's just about half of your bottom line there. And then we can also compare our shops and offices. I'm looking at the commercial side of this, and the department stores. So those are immediately above our warehouses. So you can see that these losses, the commercial sector, adds up to more than half of the total. So it's quite significant. Right. So as I said, I'll give you guys these slides afterwards so that you can go through them in your own time. This is just to give you some high-level overview of our losses that we experience. We've got a scale here from the 2010 to 2019 period that you guys can also go through at your own pace. And this will just give you some more information. We've got our comparison on the industrial losses on 2017 to 2019, which is also quite significant. And then another scary fact is that about 54 out of 210 fire departments actually submitted the losses, and this for the statistical gathering or where this information comes from. So this is about maybe just over a quarter accurate if we had to look at the bigger picture. And these financial losses are estimated from the fire department, and there's no consequential losses or business continuation losses coupled to this. This is literally, I can call it a thumbsuck from the fire departments. So I'm going to show you guys a short video and what it looks like when you've got a building or a structure. In this instance, there was no sprinkler protection. So the video clip coming up is a big fire textile factory or warehouse in late November of 2020. And you guys can just watch the video, and we'll chat about this further down the presentation.
A massive fire has totally engulfed a textile factory in the Izakeni Peters Industrial Park of Ladysmith. The factory, which is currently still on fire and firefighters are currently still battling the blaze, is totally engulfed. It is an active scene, and this is a breaking news item, and we bring this to you live as it's happening. Our reporter on the scene, Claudine Senecal, had this to say.
I followed the firemen as far as I could go inside. I'm just going to quickly give you the lowdown. Firefighters from Alfreduma Municipality and Peters Industrial Area responded to a factory on fire this afternoon. The fire completely engulfed the factory. At this stage, it's not sure what's inside the factory. Only that firefighters are battling the flames as it has completely engulfed the property.
The factory, which is based at 7 Red Street in the Izakeni industrial area, belongs to Delon Textile. But the building now is totally engulfed and firefighters are still battling the flames.
Right, so that is what it looked like from an aerial view, as well as the aftermath of what is actually left from when we have a fire condition like that. So that was a total loss in its entirety. And this is the outcome or the reality when we deviate from a national building regulation requirement and also fail to follow through on installation of the actual protection required. Now, to give you guys a little bit more perspective, we're going to be looking at the basic operation of a sprinkler system. So most of you should know this. And for those that watch the movies and have seen the Hollywood sprinklers go off, unfortunately, that's not the way a sprinkler system actually works. So just to give you guys a very brief demonstration of how a basic wet sprinkler system actually activates and controls the fire. We've got this small animation showing you two different floor levels. So you can see we've got a mezzanine floor level with sprinklers installed at the high level roof, as well as sprinklers beneath our mezzanine or other story. You also have different types of storage taking place. You can have your racks, and you can have freestanding storage, or you might have other shelves. So there are also many different types of storage that we get. But the basic operation of a sprinkler system is actually detecting a fire from the point of origin. So depending on where that fire is going to start, you'll have your rising heat collecting. And this is the key word here. You've got heat collection at the sprinkler. This is why they are installed high level on the specific ceiling level, in order to collect that heat and then activate based on the response time and the temperature rating, and then distributing the water over that fire area. Now, this is crucial and very important that the storage configurations are taken into consideration, as well as the height of storage, because our sprinkler systems are based on known tests and also proven standards. So we know the basic behavior of a freestanding storage fire depending on the heat release. So depending on where that fire condition is, that is where your sprinkler system will operate, all right? So based on that heat collection taking place at your sprinklers installed at ceiling level, or in other instances, maybe in your rack or storage configuration. I'm not going to cover too much detail of the technical side of sprinklers, because we're going to then need about 30 days. So once you have activation, you've got flow through your control valve, and you'll see the little blue line there is got your alarm motor and gong. That's a mechanical gong that will activate as soon as the alarm, there is enough flow through that alarm valve to activate one sprinkler. It will sound your alarm gong, right? So that's a mechanical alarm. And then your alarm acts as a non-return valve that will slowly open up based on the amount of sprinklers or the flow through that control valve to the area where you've got that fire condition. So that's really the basic principle for sprinklers and how they actually operate. Now, just stepping a little bit into the technical side of things, and please just bear with me. If this is not your cup of tea, I don't know, just bear with me on this one. Your SANS 10400 is the national building regulation that is split up from Part A literally up to Part Z. And you've got Part T that actually deals with the requirements when it comes to fire and what the building's structure integrity for that duration of the fire should and should not be, and when you also need to install sprinklers, right? It's not the sprinkler code that tells you when you require sprinklers or the risk assessor. It is the national building regulation that gives us that framework. Now, a very important thing to note as well, you've got different years of occupancies. You've got your predating 1988, and then you also have predating 2011. And the one that we are currently on is post-dating from 2011 right up to where we are today and in 2021. Those are your different years of occupancy changes when we look at the national building regulation. So pre-1988, you had a total volume on a specific occupancy of about 6,000 cubic meters. Then you would need to install that sprinkler system. When we look at from 1988 to 2011, and most risk assessors are familiar with this one, you've got your J1, J2 or moderate storage risks that had that 2,500 squares or 3 meter storage, then you require a sprinkler system. However, it's changed from 2011 up to where we are today, where we are looking still at the occupancy and your limitation, as well as your storage heights based on the product that, or the category of that product that you are storing. So that's the most important thing to note. It's not just your limitation on square meterage, it's also based on your storage height. The higher you're going to be storing a product, the more intense or more heat release you're going to have from that, okay? So SANS 10400 Part T, that deals with our divisional areas. If you had to look at table 3 of 10400 Part T, it gives you your divisional areas based on the occupancies that you've got, right? So no fixed fire protection, you cannot exceed your 2,500 square meters. And when you do exceed that, you require a sprinkler system. And also, the second condition is your storage heights in your table 1. So even if your occupancy is below that 2,500 squares, if you are exceeding your category of goods, your storage of those goods, you automatically require a sprinkler system to be installed. So this is one of the challenges that we've got today, is the big misnomer that we will compartmentalize all these new buildings into smaller than 2,500 squares and we don't need a sprinkler system. However, once the clients exceed these storage heights, you require a sprinkler system regardless. So this is quite important and also worth noting. Then there's another 3 other conditions. You've got your interconnection of 2 or more floors, also based on your limitation for square meterage. And then you also have building heights that exceed 30 meters where a sprinkler system is required. And then lastly, we've got the basement levels exceeding 500 squares, regardless whether or not it's ventilated or not. So those are the 5 triggers in the national building regulation that tells us when we actually need a sprinkler system. We remain open for any consultation, or if there's no certainty when that is required, if the insurer asks us of our interpretation or opinion of a specific occupancy or storage of goods, they're welcome to contact the ASIB and ask the questions. We are more than willing to assist in getting that part right as well. So this is SANS 10400 Part T that also stipulates that when a sprinkler system is required, it's subject to a rational design. So you can apply your national sprinkler installation code, which is the SABS 0287. It's very old. I think we're going close to almost 30 years now. Other than that, you are allowed to apply a rational design, but that comes with a bit of caution, the word rational, which we'll just step into for a moment. If I can ask you guys to just park those questions for a couple of minutes, I'll definitely get to them towards the end of the session, and I'd like to answer some of those questions as well. So sprinkler codes have been developed over years of testing, research, and consideration when implementing the minimum requirements. So we've got these international sprinkler bodies and also testing facilities like your FM and LPCB. And we also have the BSEN standards and NFPA standards, FM standards, that have developed these through literally hundreds of years and actually designed tests to burn and prove that a sprinkler system can control a fire. So if many of you guys, I don't know if you are aware of this, but our sprinkler systems are designed for control mode. So a sprinkler system, regardless of occupancy, the primary design for that sprinkler system or objective is to control that fire so that it doesn't grow bigger, and it will also not spread uncontrollably. So we are looking at controlling that fire, and by controlling that fire, we are protecting building, the structure, and automatically life. The fire is not going to choose what to burn. It's not going to say, I'm going to burn a person or I'm going to burn your product. It's a complementary. I got stuck here. By protecting our structure or building, we automatically protect life of the occupants, and vice versa. If we protect or design to protect life, automatically we will be protecting that building or that structure. Now, we do get specialized systems that will suppress a fire, and we also get specialized systems that can achieve structural cooling and also prevent that structural collapse. That automatically comes with our sprinkler system. And as I already mentioned, the life safety protocols are increased as a byproduct of our sprinkler system. Remember, the National Building Regulation 10400, that is for life protection, and our sprinkler code looks after the building and automatically life after that, all right? So a sprinkler system that is compliant or complies to a code, known code or test, that will automatically minimize our losses, reduce business downtime, and automatically save lives coupled to that environment. It's a known fact that you can have a fire condition literally on the one day, and the second day, you can have your system back in operation with minimal downtime, business interruption, or consequential losses if you did not have that sprinkler system. Now, we've got a lot of different codes that goes around in the South African building environment. Some of these, as I've mentioned already, you've got the SABS 0287. So that was based on our original BSEN standards. The ASIB, we've got from 9th edition right up to where we sit today on the 12th edition. That is just a continuation of the original BSEN codes. We haven't dreamt up anything. We have literally just been moving forward like the rest of the world and keeping current in order to provide that type of risk management for South Africa. You also have your FM mutual, factory mutual standards, NFPA, and then the BSEN standard already mentioned. Now, there are a lot of other codes available out there, but unfortunately, and this is our opinion, they're not best suited for our South African building environment. It's very difficult to take one code that has been developed for a specific country or building environment. If you had to look at the American standards, most of their construction is timber-based, where South African, we've got our brick and mortar construction, so it's vastly different. And we simply can't just take that NFPA and apply it or transpose that onto our South African building environment. You can do that, but it's going to come at a significant higher cost implication to the end user. You literally have to bring all that equipment, all those NFPA engineers and risk managers from the US and have that system certified in South Africa. So that's also one of the big misconceptions that we've got, that our system complies with NFPA or FM if it hasn't been signed off by NFPA or FM factory mutual risk engineer. Unfortunately, I'm going to differ on that. So another point to also try and bring across on this is the rational design that we've got, or when we deviate from code. Now, sprinkler codes are intended to be implemented as the rational design submission if we look at SANS 10400 Part T. And then by doing so, the requirements of that Annexure T will be met. And deviation from code has now become what in South Africa we call that rational design. It's a very gray word, and there is a correct rational design, and there's also an incorrect rational design. So just speaking loosely on this, if you deviate from a code because that code does not suit that specific application. Let's say you've got a very specialized risk and it's not covered by the installation code that you've chosen to apply for that risk. You are allowed to deviate. However, you have to base your deviation on another proven standard or code, right? And coupled with that, you can't just take favorable aspects from one code and transpose it into another code. This is where we have a disconnect when it comes to rational design. You can't just think taking little bits and pieces from every single code and stitching them all together that it's going to work. It's not proven and it's not tested. So that is the dangerous part of taking favorable aspects or individual opinions or an individually engineered solution and applying it, whereas you've got proven standards or proven codes that can be used to protect and manage that specific risk. Now, this has happened due to the historic and current trends by our engineers to undertake design of a sprinkler system by deviating from that code and making it a individualized approach. And that design might have minor deviation. However, in many instances, we see major deviation where they take the water requirements from one code, which is less, transpose it into their local applied code, which is not tested. And it's mainly done to save costs at the end of the day. And that's where it becomes quite dangerous. When code is deviated from the tried and the tested that we've got and the actual research that's gone into it, it becomes compromised. And there's no saying whether or not a deviated design of a sprinkler system will work or not. We don't guess. We do science and we apply the correct protection based on that specific risk, the heat output of that fire, and we design that system with the correct design capacity. Now, to just break this down in small bite sizes, you've got sprinkler system, and I'm talking about our commercial sprinkler systems out there, the storage warehouses and some process risks. You can have two main categories for your sprinkler systems, which is ordinary hazard or high hazard. Now, many instances, people think that I've got a category 4 product. It's all of a sudden, it's a high hazard. It doesn't work that way. You've got your categories for ordinary hazard, category 1 to 4, and you also have your category 1 to 4 for high hazard. It's all based on your storage configuration and your heights where you are storing this. If you are going to be increasing the amount of product you're going to be storing and also increasing the height that you're going to be storing, that is where you take that product from an ordinary hazard perspective into a high hazard category. So to give you guys a small example of this, you've got your goods from category 1 to 4, which are also these categorizations are based on known and proven tests, right? So we don't guess that shock absorbers are category 2 products. These products have been literally measured on the heat output that they give. And if we had to look at, let's take it for the ladies, we can look at the synthetic shoes as a category 3 product, right? Now you can have category 3 products in ordinary hazard as well as high hazard occupancies. The only difference is the way that you will be storing and how high you will be storing that, right? So if we had to say, we're looking at our shoes, right? So that's a category 3 product. We are looking at an ordinary hazard occupancy. If we had to stack those shoes in a little bundle on the floor for ordinary hazard, we can only go up to 2.1 meters, right? We still need a sprinkler system of 5 mil design density in order to control that fire of shoes, right? So that little bundle of shoes that we've got on fire, we can store up to a maximum of 2.1 meters. The moment we go over that, we are moving into a high hazard because we are increasing that fire load. If we put some more shoes on that, in that bundle, we're going to be creating extra or more heat release from that fire. So we can look, if you'll see, moving into our high hazard category 2 products, we can now start storing as high as we want. The only difference is the amount of water that we'll be putting down on that fire. So if you're going to be storing those shoes up to about 7.5 meters, you can do so. However, you now need, instead of your what we call 5 mil design density, you will need right up to about 17.5. So there's a, with our increase in height, there's a significant increase on the water that we are going to put down over that risk in order to control that fire. And it goes without saying, if we change the way that we store stuff, we're going to be changing the way that the fire also develops and behaves. So we have got different types of storage. This is very important. You can't just look at a bundle of shoes in the middle of the floor being the same where you've got them stored in solid shelves, where the heat collection will be different. If you've got a solid shelf area, your heat's going to collect at your shelf level and then also rise on the face of that shelf. And that will have a significant impact on the way that your system behaves. If we had to do the same comparison on category 2 or 3 products, you'll see that the storage height is also significantly reduced based on the configuration. To give you guys an idea of the different types of storage configurations that we get, this is an example of some of the different storage configurations, and there are many more. You've got your normal beam pallet racking, where you've got the product stored in your beam pallets. This is another example of solid shelves in beam pallet racking. So this can be different than open frame or your freestanding stuff that's just sitting on the floor. It's freestanding, if you follow what I'm saying. And also an example of high piled storage, also freestanding, but very high piled. So the different types of storage are also quite significant. We can go through this the whole day long on shelves, multiple shelves, drive through the live racking. So it's very important that we note the specific storage condition and also that product that we are storing in that condition, and that will give us the requirements for the amount of water to put down on that specific risk. Now, I'm sure some of you guys have seen different types of what sprinkler systems look. It's normally the red pipe, but not to be confused with hydrant piping. You also get your hydrants and hose reels. Remember, that is separate from our sprinkler system. It shouldn't even be coupled to the same water supply. These systems also act individually. If you can remember that first video I showed you guys, the firefighters, they were using their hydrant and hose streams to fight that fire, so they couldn't get into that building, obviously. But our sprinkler system has got dedicated water supplies. And this is one of the challenges we've got in South Africa, is especially rural area, or it's a fact that we do have a water-stressed society. If you guys can think the drought not long ago in Cape Town, I believe we've got the same condition in Port Elizabeth. So that's not going to change. However, I'm going to take you back to the National Building Regulation and Part T and Part W. Literally, it specifies, it makes the owner or occupier responsible for the required water for fire protection systems. So if the local council cannot provide that, some means of storing water on site and pumped water supplies falls back onto the owner, responsible for keeping his occupancy or his lives and his structures safe from losses to fire. All right, so that's quite the challenge. In many instances, in remote areas, this is where you'll have your diesel-driven sprinkler pump system and hydrant pump system with stored water, where the water can be a source like a borehole, but that water is still stored and you still have the pumped facilities at that site. So I think that should answer some of those questions as well. But it remains one of the biggest challenges when it comes to fire systems, especially where we've got deteriorating water supplies or council feed mains on today's sprinkler systems. I don't know if some of you guys have had the opportunity to be on a site and look at a system or a sprinkler system. At your control valves, you'll have what we call a block plan. And this block plan has got all the information relevant to that sprinkler installation. It will have the location of your control valves. It will have the details. So you can see you've got location of your control valves. And it shows where that valve chamber is, right? So you've got normally you've got your elevation view showing your building height, and also your plan view with the different valves feeding your different types of zones, also summarized to those specific requirements of the system. So when an inspection or a risk assessor comes around, you can look at the block plan and you can determine and see where each of those valves are allocated to a specific risk, and you normally also have your storage limitations noted on your block plan, as well as the required water supply. So this is a very important piece of information for any sprinkler installation. It is a requirement. If it's not there or it's been stolen, it needs to be updated and brought back into line with that relevant installation code. This also gives your first responders, like your fire brigade, the necessary information. If they have a fire, this is a pick and pay area, they know that that is zone 7 and it's fed by zone 7's control valve. They can then couple their equipment and boost that system in order to achieve suppression or control that fire within that area. So very important piece of information is our block plan when it comes to sprinkler systems. Now, the other challenge that we also have, and for no good reason, is pushback on why a sprinkler system is not required. We still fail to see that when people say that they've got 24-hour security or they've got permanent staff on site. I've recently received a video which it's a bit mind-blowing, and I'll show it to you in a moment. And we've got a lot of challenges, especially since the pandemic, with you guys can just think your sanitizer that's got your alcohol 70% in excess of that becomes like a class 2 flammable liquids, where you're still limited to maybe 200 liters of that stuff before you need a chemical store or a flammable liquid store. And I've seen many instances where you've got a couple of 1,000 liters of your class 1 or class 2 flammable liquids stored in your normal shopping center stores. Everybody's selling this. So that's a significant increase in risk without actually realizing the consequence or potential outcome of that. Now, I'm going to show you 3 different videos. The first one is not related to the second 2. So the first one is just the argument that you've got 24 hours, or you've got permanent staff and you've got 24-hour security. And in this instance, there's no sprinkler system installed. And you can see we've got a bit of a problem here with a fire also between our shelves already there. And if you look closely, you will see that it's already spread to the upper tier levels of the racking. Now, what you've got is a person attempting to douse this with your normal hydrant hose. There's no ways to the seat of that fire. And if you see, they've got a significant problem at this stage where this is potentially a total or major loss condition. So it's not possible to control a fire with your hydrant or hose streams when it's gotten to this stage. The fire is already in between your shelves where your sprinklers should be, and there's no ways that you can get to the seat of that fire or the upper tier levels. The second fire I'm going to show you guys, this is also a fire. This was Pretoria. I think I'm allowed to mention, this was a mica with no protection. And this is the end result.
Ach nee.
And the last video on the side here, this is again the
Yeah.
If I can. in many instances, we've got areas or buildings that are protected with sprinkler systems, and then you've got another building that is in direct communication or literally an extension. So you might have your mini factories where you've got sprinkler systems installed in one, and then you've got another mini factory in direct communication that's not completely separated from the protected area. And when this happens, you've got what we call partial protection. It doesn't mean that the sprinkler system is partially functioning. It means that you've got an unprotected area in direct communication with your protected area. And a potential issue is that you can have your fire originating in the unprotected area. And this is why I've stopped the video. It will lead to a fire condition that is in excess for what your system was designed for by the time it gets to your protected area, or as a result, the unprotected area is burning unchecked, and then the structure starts failing, therefore taking your protected area with it as well. A very, very, very good example of this is your normal shopping centers, actually, where you've got a lot of pocket protection, where sprinkler protection maybe in your Pick and Pay or Checkers or Woolworths stores, and the other stores in direct communication have got no protection and are not completely separated. So that's also one of the other key things to note here, is that
Motores vir Maika. Niks.
Now, as an example, I'm just going to show you some pictures. This is what it looks like when something has actually been designed to a proven code or standard. Just a brief picture and to see what it looks like. I can see it's very neat and good workmanship, and the painting is stellar, but that's not it. It's the minimum requirements that have been applied here, where everything has been installed to the bare minimum. Remember, I'm trying to stress this. There's nothing more required than what the sprinkler code specified that was tested. The reason why there's 2 batteries is to have redundancy. If one battery fails, or if a crank cycle results in an exploding battery, you've got a backup battery. The reason why we've got test lines is to prove the flows and pressures. So everything that we've got on a sprinkler system is there for a very good reason, and it's been proven and has been tested throughout many years of code development. Now, to show you this, and this is very recent, designed something that's been designed to code, and if we have to compare this to somebody's rational thinking and design, it becomes very different, and you can't even relate this from one to the other, where you've got something designed to a minimum versus something that is literally designed or potentially kill people. This is the end result of that. So it's quite scary out there, and unfortunately there's no other ways to show you, to also show you guys the reality, where a person that is not versed or skilled with an installation or doesn't know anything about fire protection gets involved in a very, very specialized field. So it's quite an eye opener as well to see these things, and for me to have the opportunity to create awareness and maybe educate somebody that gets involved in something like this. So lastly, I'm going to touch on maintenance, and this was also a very interesting talking point, and also a lot of confusion out there, where clients and tenants don't know how often do we require inspections on our sprinkler systems, or how often do we have to maintain certain aspects of our sprinkler systems. Now, sprinkler systems are very involving, and they're quite complex, but if you break it down to smaller bits and pieces, you've got your weekly checks with an alarm gong. You've got a pump test on a weekly basis, where you can confirm that your pumped water supply is still online, it's still good working condition. And in South Africa, we've got an accepted norm for sprinkler system inspections every 6 months. If a client chooses to do that on a yearly basis, that's their prerogative. However, an ASIP certificate is only valid for a maximum period of 6 months. And there's good reason for that, in 6 months, a lot of things can change. A pandemic can hit a country or the rest of the world. And coupled with that, you've got changes in your warehouse storage configurations. You've got partition changes. You've got material changes. So there's a lot happening in short amounts of times. And we believe in a 6-month period is more than reasonable to do an inspection to confirm water supplies on a sprinkler system, check storage height, storage configuration, product stock based on categories, that's still within that system's capability. And in many instances, you can have a change of occupancy when one tenant moves out and another tenant moves in. As an example, if somebody was just storing water bottles or cold drinks in metal cans, that can be a category 2 risk. And let's say that shoe manufacturer now moves in, where you've got those textile shoes or synthetic fibers, now goes up to a category 3 risk that you've got there. That needs to be remeasured and make sure that system has got the design capacity for that specific risk. It doesn't say that it won't suit. The new tenant might have to just lower storage heights and bring the configuration into check. So that is why we've got our 6 monthly inspections and maintenance checks that can be done on site by on-site personnel, like your weekly checks or your monthly checks for just small procedures to confirm. And coupled with that, in many instances where a system has to be upgraded, or if there's no sprinkler system installed, the insurance, from my understanding, won't just cancel cover, right? Obviously, there are conditions to that, or phased installation periods for the customer to bring that risk into check by installing sprinkler systems. And this is also what our ASIB report aims to do, is provide that information to give a high-level overview. And it's quite daunting looking at a 30-page report with a lot of red marks on it. But the information is laid out to such an extent that the client, together with the insurer, because they all form part of the AHJ, the authority having jurisdiction, in order to mitigate and manage that specific risk. And then that's also where we can come in on a consultative basis and provide the correct requirements if the client at the end of the day is not sure. Another thing is if a client's storage is outside of check, it's also not just a matter, just putting this into perspective. If a client is slightly over on storage height, it's no reason just to pull a certificate. It's noted and the client is informed that he needs to lower his storage. And based on him doing that, we also still provide that clearance certificate by saying that if you've lowered that, we don't have a problem with that. That's no reason for just pulling a clearance certificate, right? And if we can see over a period of time that the client hasn't done anything and that you've got excessive faults on a sprinkler system, the ASIB will unfortunately no longer be in a position to put our personal indemnities on the line for somebody that's not bringing that risk back into check. And the other sticky part to this is it's always commercial. We do understand and we do realize that fire protection, it's not cheap, and a properly designed and installed system based on the building size and the type of system going into it can be fairly expensive. However, if you had to go back to those initial statistics I shown you in the beginning, it's that you can't even compare the cost of outlaying a sprinkler system as a good investment versus a total loss where you've got no more business and consequential damages and also people's lives lost in fire condition, right? So there's no comparison. It remains a commercial aspect, and we do understand that. However, we believe it's a very healthy investment when you install a system designed to minimum requirements. All right. And the other thing I need to stress here is that it's a fraction of those costs and damages when the fire breaks out. So I want to stress that when. right? It's just a matter of time when you will have a fire. It's not if you're going to have a fire, you will have a fire. It's when you have a fire. And to have that system in place will protect you from a major or total loss at the end of the day. And coupled with this, it goes without saying, if you do your planned maintenance, it's usually at a fraction of the cost by just doing those maintenance over a period of time and being consistent with those requirements and those service intervals. But it requires that consistency by getting those maintenance done. The fact of the matter is people become complacent, and when this happens, unavoidable tragedies occurred. And the key to most risk management efforts is being regular. And to close this off, a simple alarm gong test could have confirmed that this valve is not operational. And at the end of the day, should there have been a fire condition, this valve wouldn't have functioned, also leading to your total lost condition. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys with this short presentation. I hope it wasn't too much of an overload. If there's any other questions, I'm sure I can answer that in another forum. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Niku van Locherenberg, for that very insightful and in-depth presentation about automatic sprinklers. Sorry, that talk was, of course, brought to us by CIB, who are one of our event partners today. So huge thank you to CIB. If you missed it early on and you would like to learn more about the insurance directory, please reach out to Blake. You can email him at blake@cnandco.com. That is blake@cnandco.com. All right, so we have just shared the link for our next Insure Talk taking place on the 24th of June. If you'd like to go on early, you can do so right now. Head on over to the chat to register yourself nice and early. All right, so we're going to head on over to the last speaker of today. His name is Devin Kerr. He is the managing director and founder of Premium Finance Partners, and he's going to be giving us an insurance broker's perspective on mergers and acquisitions. It is over to you, Devin Kerr.
Cool, thank you very much, and yeah, good afternoon to everyone. Thanks very much for inviting me. We're very excited to be involved in the presentation. I know I'm last up, so I will try to keep the presentation as exciting as possible. So let me just try share my screen. I'm hoping everyone can see that. Let me just do there. Yeah, so as mentioned, I am Devin Kerr, founder and MD of Premium Finance Partners, which is a financial services business with a particular focus on providing loan funding into the insurance sector. And I've been asked to discuss very briefly the topic of M&A or mergers and acquisitions in the insurance broking sector, a topic that that many of you know I'm pretty passionate about. As we have been involved in hundreds of transactions, both from a buyer's perspective, where we funded brokers buying books of businesses, but also more recently from a seller's perspective, where we have assisted brokers from an advisory perspective sell their books of businesses. So I think with this being said, the one thing I've learned over the years is that no one deal is the same. Each deal is completely unique. So I'm not going to kind of try to provide you with the perfect M&A strategy, but rather sort of draw on some of our clients' learnings over the years in the hope that many of their learnings can help potentially some of you in either your next acquisition or your next sale of a business. I recognize I obviously only have a very short space of time, but I'll stick around afterwards to answer any questions. So yeah, please use the dialogue box. So I think starting from a buyer's perspective, and whilst it has been very rare for us to have seen a deal go completely south, we have seen many brokers over the years acquire books of businesses and be left very dissatisfied with the outcome. So I think to start off, the one lesson that I guess many brokers or many experienced brokers have come to terms with over the years is the age-old saying that it's not all about price. And I suppose this is unfortunately where many buyers have fallen short on deals, where they've been so fixated on the revenue multipliers or the revenue multiples that they've acquired a book for, that they've sacrificed almost everything else, which we believe are, I guess, even more financially important to a deal. We come across, I suppose, many deals where, you know, the buyer's just so proud to tell us that they've acquired a book for sort of 1.5 times revenue. But when you dig down into it, they've spent very, very little time or focus on things like warranties and post-acquisition costs, agterskorts, which actually in the long run have a much bigger financial impact on a deal. And then buying anything, I think last month we had a request from a broker up in Joburg, who was looking to acquire a broker in Modimolle, whereby the seller was exiting over a 6-month period, and the Joburg-based broker thought they could kind of service the largely agri client base from their head office. And whilst it's never our place, our intention to get operationally involved in a deal, we had to kind of question the broker's ability to both service and maintain the client base. And I think many brokers follow a sort of acquisition strategy of buying absolutely anything that sells a policy. But we kind of feel strongly that many brokers should sort of kind of stick to their knitting. And unless you're a national broker that can service remote regions, and there are many, you should really narrow your focus down, sort of understand where your strengths are, culturally, what customers does your business attract? And then I suppose most importantly, where you have the ability to service a book of business. And then proactivity is also absolutely key to a transaction. And whilst delays in obtaining funding and kind of getting approvals and whatever don't generally result in a deal falling over, it often just starts a deal off on a complete wrong footing, which leaves a sour taste in the seller's mouth. And I suppose most funders in the space are happy to engage early on in a deal to try and make sure that, you know, kind of a buyer has the freedom to go and negotiate. So make sure you're kind of quite proactive in your approach to ensure that once your offer is accepted, you don't have this very lengthy sort of contracting process that starts a deal off bad. And then I think the single biggest crisis we've ever seen from a sort of brokerage finance transaction was where a buyer of an 80 million rand book of business, so it was a fairly big brokerage, looked to restrain only the seller or the kind of MD at that point, and left all the AEs and relationship managers out of the restraints. And 10 months after the deal, there was very, very little book left, as the AEs had kind of taken all the clients to competitors. And I suppose the original buyer had very little recourse against making sure that they could get those clients back. So I guess our view is, no matter what people say, and I know there's a big difference in opinion there, but restraints do hold water. So make sure you get these into action, use proper legal representation in the drafting process. And I suppose whilst it goes beyond the scope of this discussion, we've seen quite a few people start implementing liquidated damages clauses into their agreements, which we think has quite a good mechanism of ensuring retention post-acquisition. And then lastly, in most of our loan applications, I'd almost say close to all of them, we generally see sort of the post-acquisition revenue uptick or kind of expense consolidation or reductions happen sort of instantaneously from from day of acquisition, which we find is a little bit bullish. And we normally kind of have to work with the guys in making sure they can downscale these aspects. You know, moving business across to your binders takes time. Cutting legacy expenses is a difficult thing. It takes long. So make sure you factor in these delays. Otherwise, you may be left like many of our brokers who kind of forecast a certain profitability post-acquisition and get kind of left with a lot of liquidity strain over the time. And then from a seller's point of view, and over the years, I suppose we have ended up seeing many brokers. And it's a sad thing to see them leave a lot of money on their table as they've worked so hard to make sure that they can build a great business. And we think by just not being persistent enough, they haven't managed to get their money's worth. But it's usually as a result of proactivity. And this is either waiting too late to sell their business, where they get a little bit old and a little bit tired, or just not being intentional enough about the actual sale process and getting their business into sales shape. And whilst most buyers, when acquiring a book, generally look past the actual PTY and what sits in there, 9 times out of 10, if your business or your company isn't sale already, you can offer scare buyers off and end up getting a much lower sale price. So sort out your liabilities, get your contracts in order, properly structure your binders, make sure your employment contracts are compliant and on file. All of these things indicate to a buyer that you are a good target and can generally justify a very high purchase price. And then do your sums and make sure the price caters for your needs. This also applies to buyers, as it's often where deals go wrong. I think in late 2020, if it's one that I can remember, we had a deal come across our table where a 42-year-old individual with a fairly solid book of business was selling his business for around 4.2 million rand. And the reason for sale was retirement. And now we understand, again, it's not our position to question these qualitative aspects, but from a pure credit perspective, we weren't comfortable that the seller had the financial means to actually properly retire. And once he realizes this, which many guys have in the past, they would be right back in the industry, sort of knocking on their door of their clients. So from both a buyer and a seller perspective, take the time, unpack the reasons for sale, and just make sure for both your sakes that the seller is serious and the money that's on the table kind of meets the requirements that the seller has. And then also as a seller, make sure you properly consider the sort of tax implications of your structure. Selling a book has much higher capital gains tax elements than selling your shares in your business. So make sure you check the net benefit of what your sale is to make sure that you don't underscore yourself from a retirement perspective. And then once you have made, I suppose, the big decision to sell, which it really is a big decision, don't just talk to one party. And this is something we find quite so bizarrely unique in the insurance sector. And I suppose to compare it to dating, I guess it's almost the equivalent of sort of going on one date with one person and straight away deciding that they're sort of the right life partner for you. And it's the way insurance M&A stuff has always been done. But seek alternatives, make sure you kind of get comparative offers on the table. And it's generally, the competitive bidding process isn't just really around getting a better price for your business, but we feel it's also just to make sure you know what's out there and that you can kind of get a feel for, what the buyer's ability is to kind of look after your most prized asset and your very important customer base. And then warranties and reserve matters. It's often where we see a more experienced buyer get one over a generally more inexperienced seller, because that's normally the case. And a recent deal we saw was where a buyer offered a seller a significant purchase price. So he was very excited about the deal, but it was largely based on sort of a 24-month or profitability between month 12 and 24 after acquisition. And then I think to make matters worse, the seller had very little ability to manage the expense base of his business. So we kind of question that unless you really have a utmost trust for the buyer, you could be left with getting a lot less than what you originally assumed. So yeah, ensure your payment structure, your valuation methodology, warranties, they're all in your favor and largely protect you. You don't want to be left doing a deal, getting all excited and planning what you're going to do with your money, only to be found out that, because of an approach, you left with a significant amount less than what you initially expected. And then again, something completely unique to the insurance sector is the lack of professional help that most brokers get when embarking on a sale process. Most brokers we see in all the deals, they sort of reference their auditors as being their advisors in the space. And yeah, whilst auditors will all kind of concede that they are very financially very astute, they normally have very little experience in the M&A space. So, this M&A space is, and especially in South Africa, is getting very complicated, getting very litigious, and we feel strongly that using professionals kind of in a sale process is something that should become more commonplace like the other industries. And yeah, there are costs involved. Of course, there are additional costs that are done, but generally these costs are negligible to the kind of enhanced value you can either get or the reduced tax that you can get from using sort of sole-side advisors or tax experts. So make sure you use professional help. We think it goes a long way in making sure that the net benefit, or even from a buyer's perspective, the deal you're putting on the table goes as successfully as possible. And then, yeah, my favorite topic in the insurance sector, and probably the most common question that I get, is what is the going rate of a book of business? And I suppose we are probably officially the only sector in the world where businesses are valued on a multiple of revenue. So I suppose many of you are probably asking how we kind of got here. We believe, and I suppose there's no right or wrong answer, but that revenue pricing in the brokerage world was a historical pricing approach whereby your revenue or premium could largely sort of dictate or was a good benchmark for profit of a business. But over the years, the market's changed a lot, and we're starting to see vast differences in the cost basis of brokers, and therefore valuing a brokerage based on revenue is starting to become less and less valuable as kind of cost bases continue to differ and diverge from one broker to the next. So being the language of brokers and not trying to change anything, we do understand that despite it being a bit of an anomaly, it's something that won't ever change. And we obviously have come to accept it as a benchmark for most deals. So to answer the question, we're starting to see the going rate for brokers at the current moment sort of average around 1.75 times annual revenue, with generally a 60% upfront, 20% after 12 months, and then another 20% after 18 or 24 months. Starting to be the sort of norm. But interesting though, we are starting to see your smaller brokerages, guys with very kind of low overheads, low staff, simple expense structure, start getting much higher values, sometimes well above 2 times, as generally, these businesses can get bought and absorbed quite quickly and translate straight down to the bottom line of a buyer. So from a factors to consider perspective, and whilst there are many factors that can affect or amend a purchase price or valuation, we consider the following to be the most material aspect. So expense base and employee count is a large one. Normal PBT margins of a broker that we normally see approximate kind of 30%, but we are starting to see, again, like mentioned, this diverge quite a lot, and starting to see guys with much higher or much lower PBT margins, largely as a result of kind of your employee base. But yeah, we see very different ones. Last week we saw a broker with a fairly large broker with an 86% PBT margin, which is a very, very efficiently run business. But generally 30% is the norm that we see. Book split, very important. Commercial business, again, is generally considered more sticky, less price sensitive, although I know many of you will argue at the moment, and kind of less prone to direct competition. So these things are valued by buyers. So, kind of the parameters, if your book generally exceeds 60% in commercial business, you'd probably be considered quite a good acquisition target, and probably able to demand a higher revenue multiple. And obviously, if you kind of have more saturation towards a commercial business, you would go further and further up that scale. And then revenue split, I suppose with binder fees largely under pressure, broker fees, starting to be looked at closer by clients, we're starting to see buyers reduce their kind of reliance on these and start to sort of value commission more readily, starting to become more important. And then post-acquisition costs, something we feel very, very misunderstood and often kind of a sticking point on a deal. Once kind of everything's agreed, it becomes a real big problem in a transaction. and often leaves a seller sort of disappointed with the value they get. But, put simply, I think if you as a seller demand a high salary post-acquisition or a lot of expenses post-acquisition, you need to understand or at least appreciate that a buyer is going to offer you a much lower offer price. And I know it's largely disagreed to, or it's quite a contentious issue, but that's unfortunately how a buyer will look at a transaction. They work very much hand in hand. And then I suppose with this all being said, there, I guess, are 101 different valuation methodologies. You can normally justify through variables any valuation price. But I suppose in the end, for us, the value of a business is simply the price someone is willing to pay for it. And we usually feel that sort of the best deals are ones where either the buyer and seller both feel like they've just won, or we always laugh and say sort of where both buyer and seller feel like they've kind of just lost or just left some money on the table. So from our perspective, we do apply obviously our own sort of bespoke valuation methodology. And yeah, I suppose apologies for the mouthful, but we feel the best way to look at a deal is on a forward-looking normalized EBITDA basis, and EBITDA is earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So in a sort of brokerage world, it's just sort of a classy way, or a sort of classy way of saying profit before tax post acquisition. And then once you've kind of stripped out all the irregular expenses that we often see in a brokerage. And then once you have this number, you sort of want to multiply it by sort of 3 to 6 times, depending on the factors at play that we kind of went through earlier. And it's quite surprising, and it does allow us to eat our own words, but it normally comes out at sort of you'll gain your 1.5 to 2 times revenue multiple, which normally looks to give the buyer a sort of 12 to 24% return on their investment, which I think we would argue is very fair in this space, given the risk profile of a brokerage. Many other sectors will probably demand a 20 to 30% return on investment, whereas, brokerage, very sustainable, very sticky. There are a lot of synergies on acquisition. We think kind of the 12 to 24% is somewhat fair. Yeah, and then in the end, and I suppose we've got quite a short time, if I could ask any kind of the following to be the key takeaways, I'd like you to sort of remember these. I suppose number one is, and I've touched on it before, seek professional help in the process. These are big deals these days. We're starting to see big numbers for brokers, and they're often probably the most important transaction you will do as a buyer and or a seller. So I suppose just like you ask clients to use brokers for their risk placement or insurance placement, use professionals who sort of know what they're doing to ensure that you not only get the best deal for yourselves from a value perspective, but also just as important, you're protected in the process. And then secondly, I suppose, be intentional around the deal. Plan the handover, agree a communication strategy, make sure all parties are aligned on how it needs to be communicated. All stakeholders, that's clients, insurers, your creditors, your suppliers, make sure you've communicated well in advance to them. The best deals are done, the ones that are kind of proactively and systematically done. And then lastly, and I think most importantly, don't kill the process through negotiation. Price isn't everything. And it's important that you don't push a negotiation too hard. Insurance, as I suppose you'll know better than me, is a relationship game. As much as you may not like it, both the buyer and the seller are equally as important to the success of a transaction. And it's really important that you embark on a deal without either party sort of feeling despondent after the transaction. So yeah, thanks a lot for the time, and especially to InsureTalk for including me in the session. I will stick around to answer any questions, but otherwise feel free to sort of drop me an email, or if you want to chat. We work with both buyers and sellers in the space. So yeah, always happy to or keen to see where we can assist. But thanks very much for the time, and always appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Devin Kerr, for that very insightful presentation on mergers and acquisitions. We have reached the end of our session. A huge thank you once again to all of our sponsors. Our headline sponsor today was Old Mutual Insure. Huge thank you to Old Mutual Insure, as well as our event partners CIB, the IISA, Bowman, as well as Cover Magazine. A huge thank you to you. Thank you to all of our speakers for availing yourselves today and for sharing all of your insights. We thoroughly enjoyed it. A huge thank you once again to all of our attendees for joining us today. We do appreciate your continued support. InsureTalk 13 is taking place on the 24th of June, so do head on over and register yourself if you have not already done so. It has been a fantastic session. We have enjoyed it thoroughly. A reminder once again, if you would like more information and details around the virtual team builds, do reach out to the CN&CO events team for more information there, or you can email Llewellyn du Plessis directly. I'd like to leave you with a short quote, as I always do. Always improve on the things you do better and faster. The author there is unknown. Ladies and gentlemen, from myself, Nontusuko Mhlungu, and the CN&CO events team, we are signing out. It's been a great one. See you next time.